The notification appeared at 7:12 a.m., and Daniel Hayes knew, immediately, sickeningly, that he'd just destroyed everything. His hands shook as he stared at the screen. One accidental like, one careless tap in the darkness of his exhausted midnight scroll. But it wasn't just anyone's profile. It was hers. Ariana Blake. Billionaire. Untouchable. And worst of all, his ex-wife's younger sister. The woman who represented everything he'd walked away from. The world that had chewed him up and spit him out. The family that still, 2 years later, looked at him like he was dirt on expensive carpet. One like. That's all it took. Before we dive into what happens next, and trust me, this gets complicated fast, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. You're going to want to stick around for this one. The coffee had gone cold in Daniel's hand, but he hadn't moved. Couldn't move. His daughter Sophie's cereal bowl sat untouched on the table behind him, cartoon characters cheerfully singing from the living room TV, oblivious to the personal catastrophe unfolding in their cramped kitchen. The message was simple, almost mocking in its brevity. Well, didn't expect to see your name pop up. Interesting choice of late-night browsing. Daniel's stomach dropped. She'd seen it. Of course she'd seen it. The app probably sent her a notification the second his thumb had betrayed him. He could picture her now, probably in some penthouse office overlooking the city, surrounded by architectural models and floor-to-ceiling windows, raising one perfectly shaped eyebrow at her phone. "Daddy?" Sophie's voice cut through his panic. "You're being weird again." He turned to find his 6-year-old standing in the doorway, still in her unicorn pajamas, dark hair sticking up at odd angles. She had his eyes, hazel, slightly too large for her face, but everything else was pure Miranda. High cheekbones, sharp chin, the kind of bone structure that photographs well. "I'm not being weird, Bug," he said, forcing his voice steady. "Just checking messages. Your face is doing the thing." "What thing?" "The worried thing. Like when the check from Grandma bounces." Daniel winced, 6 years old and already too perceptive for her own good. "Eat your cereal. We've got 20 minutes before school." Sophie didn't move. "Is it Mom?" "No." The word came out too fast, too sharp. He softened it. "No, Bug. Nothing to do with Mom." Technically true. Miranda didn't know about this yet, but when she found out, and she would find out because this was exactly the kind of ammunition she lived for, all hell would break loose. Sophie studied him for another moment, then shrugged and returned to her cereal. Daniel looked back at his phone. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. His chest tightened. She was typing. What the hell was she typing? The message came through. "Relax. I can practically feel your panic from here. Was it really an accident, or are you working up the courage to tell me you've been secretly pining for 2 years?" Despite everything, Daniel felt a surprised laugh bubble up. Not the response he'd expected. He'd braced for coldness, maybe mockery. Not humor? His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Delete the app. Block her. Pretend this never happened. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the unexpected lightness in her message. Maybe it was the fact that she'd responded at all when she could have just ignored it. Or maybe, and this thought made him deeply uncomfortable, maybe it was curiosity about what she'd say next. He typed carefully. "Accident. Complete accident. I was half asleep, scrolling, and my thumb just... I'm sorry. This is mortifying." The response was instant. "I've had worse likes. Last month, a 70-year-old senator accidentally super-liked me while his wife was tagged in his profile photo. At least you're age-appropriate and presumably single. Very single, aggressively single. That's a concerning level of commitment to singlehood. Have you met your sister?" The words were out before he could stop them. He stared at the message, horrified. Too far. Way too far. You don't trash-talk someone's family, even if that family had made your divorce a living nightmare. The typing indicator appeared. Stayed. His heart hammered against his ribs. Fair point. Miranda can be intense. Daniel blinked, read it again, then a third time. That's diplomatic. I'm very good at diplomacy. It's how I avoid family dinners. He shouldn't keep responding. This was dangerous territory. But his fingers were already moving. Does that actually work? Avoiding family dinners? Not really. Mother has people for tracking me down. Last Thanksgiving, I was in Tokyo, and she still managed to get me on video call for the blessing. Sounds exhausting. You have no idea. How's Sophie? The question caught him off guard. Ariana had met Sophie exactly twice. Once at the wedding, when Sophie was barely a year old, and once at the divorce proceedings, where she'd sat in the back of the courtroom looking distinctly uncomfortable in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his car. She's good. First grade. Obsessed with space. Smart kid. Space is significantly more interesting than most adults. Speaking from experience, I spend a lot of time in boardrooms. You'd be amazed how many grown men think repeating themselves louder counts as making a point. Daniel smiled despite himself. He glanced at the clock. 7:28. School started at 8:15. He needed to get Sophie dressed, make her lunch, find her library book that had mysteriously vanished sometime yesterday afternoon. He should end this conversation, thank her for being cool about it, and move on with his life. I really am sorry about he typed instead. I know this is probably weird. Honestly, it's the most interesting thing that's happened to me this week, and I just closed a $50 million development deal. Sounds like you need better hobbies. I have hobbies. Like what? Architecture, design, finding ways to avoid my mother's phone calls. Those last two are careers, not hobbies. You're very judgy for someone who accidentally liked his ex-sister-in-law's dating profile. He laughed out loud this time. Sophie's head popped around the corner again. You're smiling at your phone. That's even weirder than the worried face. Just a funny message, Bug. Go get dressed. From who? A friend. You don't have friends. Thanks for that, Soph. I mean, you have like two friends. Mr. Peterson next door and that lady from your work who brings me weird candy. Judith? Her name is Judith. She brought me black licorice candy last time. Black licorice isn't candy. It's a punishment disguised as candy. Daniel couldn't argue with that logic. Go, get dressed. Sophie sighed dramatically but disappeared down the hallway. Daniel looked back at his phone. Still there? Or did your daughter catch you? How did you know I was talking to her? Lucky guess. Plus you mentioned she was obsessed with space. Kids don't shut up about their interests. Truth. What does she want to be when she grows up? Changes weekly. Last week it was astronaut. This week it's astronaut chef who cooks food in space. That's actually a real thing. Food science for long-duration space missions. Don't tell her that. I can barely handle her current level of questions. What kind of questions? This morning she asked if the sun gets tired of being hot all the time. That's oddly philosophical. That's Sophie. A pause. Then, this is going to sound crazy, but I'm actually in town this week, meeting with the Planning Commission about a waterfront project. Daniel's thumb froze over the keyboard. Oh yeah? Smooth, real smooth. Yeah, I know this is probably overstepping about 17 social boundaries, but would you want to grab coffee? Clear the air about the whole awkward-like situation? His first instinct was to say no. Absolutely not. This was exactly the kind of complication he'd spent 2 years avoiding. Getting involved with anyone connected to Miranda was relationship suicide. But then again, it was just coffee. One conversation. They could laugh about the whole thing, establish that it was genuinely an accident, and move on like adults. Sure, when were you thinking? Tomorrow? There's a place on 5th Street called Momentum. Good coffee, quiet corners. Daniel knew it. Minimalist interior, expensive espresso, the kind of place where people had important conversations in low voices. Miranda used to love it. Tomorrow works. What time? 10? I'll be there. Looking forward to it. Try not to accidentally like anyone else's profile before then. No promises. He set his phone down, heart racing in a way that felt both exciting and dangerous. Coffee. That's all. Just coffee with someone who happened to be tangentially related to his ex-wife. Nothing could go wrong with that. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of routine and creeping anxiety. Daniel went through the motions: work, dinner, homework, help, bedtime stories, but his mind kept circling back to the coffee date. Not a date. Coffee meeting. Casual conversation between two adults who'd been thrown together by circumstance. He changed his shirt 3 times the next morning before settling on the second option, a dark blue button-down that Sophie said made him look less like a tired dad. He wasn't sure if that was a compliment. "Why are you being fancy?" Sophie asked, around a mouthful of waffle. "I'm not being fancy. This is just a regular shirt." "You ironed it. You never iron." "I iron sometimes." "Name one time." "Your school picture day." "That was 4 months ago and you burned the collar." Daniel pointed his coffee mug at her. "You're going to make a terrifying teenager." Sophie grinned, syrup on her chin. "Grandma says I get it from you." "Your grandmother says a lot of things. Most of them deeply critical of his life choices, his career, his parenting, and his general existence. Eleanor Blake hadn't wanted Miranda to marry him in the first place. A struggling designer with no real prospects wasn't suitable for her daughter. The fact that Miranda had married him anyway had been a minor miracle. The fact that she'd divorced him exactly as her mother predicted had been significantly less miraculous. He dropped Sophie at school at 8:20, watched her disappear into the building with her space-themed backpack bouncing against her shoulders, then sat in his car for a full minute trying to decide if he was really doing this. His phone buzzed. "Still on for 10? No judgment if you've thought better of it?" Daniel stared at the message. This was his out. He could say something came up at work, reschedule for some vague future date that would never actually happen. Let the whole thing fade into uncomfortable memory. "Still on. See you soon." He started the car before he could change his mind. Momentum occupied the ground floor of a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and reclaimed wood and industrial lighting. The kind of place that charged $7 for coffee and somehow made you feel like it was worth it. Ariana was already there. Daniel spotted her in the back corner, laptop open, completely absorbed in whatever was on her screen. She wore black, fitted blazer, simple shirt. Everything probably cost more than his monthly rent, but didn't scream it. Her dark hair was pulled back in a way that looked effortless, but definitely wasn't. She looked up as he approached, and Daniel caught his first real look at her in 2 years. She'd changed. Not dramatically, same sharp features, same assessing dark eyes, but there was something different in the set of her shoulders. Less of the careful composure he remembered from the wedding and divorce, more present. "You're early," she said, closing her laptop. "So are you." "I'm always early. Occupational habit." She gestured to the other chair. "Sit. I already ordered. Hope you don't mind. I wasn't sure what you drink, so I got you a regular coffee. Black. Seems safe." Daniel sat, accepting the cup. "Black's perfect, thanks." An awkward beat of silence. They both sipped their coffee. "So," Ariana said finally, "we're really doing this. Apparently. You want to lead with the apology, or should I lead with the gracious acceptance?" I think I covered the apology pretty thoroughly over text." "You did. Very thorough. Almost suspiciously thorough." She leaned back, studying him with an expression he couldn't quite read, which makes me think there's more to this than just an accidental like. Daniel's stomach tightened. "There's not." "Okay. I mean it. I was scrolling, fell asleep, thumb hit the screen. Pure accident." "I believe you." She paused. "But you still showed up. You invited me. You could have said no. So could you." Ariana smiled, small, genuine. "Fair point." The tension eased slightly. Daniel took another sip of coffee, buying time to figure out what the hell he was supposed to say next. "How's the waterfront project?" he asked finally. "Complicated. The Planning Commission wants fewer residential units, more commercial space. The developers want the opposite. I'm stuck in the middle trying to design something that won't get killed in committee." "Sounds frustrating." "It's architecture. Everything's frustrating." She tilted her head. "What about you? Still doing graphic design?" "Freelance, yeah. Corporate branding mostly. Company logos, marketing materials. Nothing glamorous." "But you like it?" Did he? Daniel considered the question honestly. "It pays the bills. Lets me make my own hours. Be there for Sophie. That's what matters." "That's not what I asked." He met her eyes. They were disconcertingly direct. "It's fine," he said. "It's good enough." "Good enough." Ariana repeated the words like she was tasting something bitter. God, that's depressing. Not everyone gets to design $50 million buildings for a living. Not everyone wants to. And I do? Don't you? The question landed harder than it should have. Daniel looked away, watching other customers drift in and out. A young couple arguing quietly over a shared laptop. An older man reading a newspaper, actually reading it, not on a tablet. The barista calling out orders in a practiced rhythm. I used to, he said finally. When I was younger, before everything got complicated. Before Miranda. Before a lot of things. Ariana was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was gentler. She really did a number on you, didn't she? Daniel's jaw tightened. We're not talking about her. Why not? She's kind of the elephant in the room. Because I didn't come here to rehash my failed marriage with her younger sister. Then why did you come? Good question. Daniel stared into his coffee like it might contain answers. I don't know, he admitted. Curiosity, boredom, temporary insanity. Those are all terrible reasons. What's your excuse? Ariana considered this, fingers drumming lightly on her laptop. Honestly, I liked our text conversation. You were funny, self-deprecating without being pathetic about it. And you didn't immediately try to leverage our connection into asking me for money or a job. That happens a lot. More than you'd think. She shrugged. People find out I'm Eleanor Blake's daughter, and suddenly everyone's got a project that needs funding or a nephew who'd be perfect for my company. Sounds exhausting. It is, so when someone accidentally likes my profile and then freaks out about it in the most genuine way possible, she smiled. It was refreshing. Daniel felt heat creep up his neck. Glad my mortification was refreshing for you. See? There it is again, self-deprecating without being pathetic. She leaned forward slightly. Tell me something real. What? Something real, not the script, not the polite small talk. What's actually going on in your life right now? The request caught him completely off guard. When was the last time someone had asked him that? Really asked, not just going through the motions of conversation. My daughter asked me yesterday if the sun gets tired, he heard himself say, and I realized I had no idea how to answer. Not because I don't know the science, the sun's a giant ball of nuclear fusion, it doesn't get tired, but because I didn't know how to translate that into something a 6-year-old would understand without crushing the poetry of the question. Ariana's expression softened. What did you tell her? That the sun probably doesn't get tired because it loves its job too much. That's a good answer. It's a cop-out answer. It's a dad answer. There's a difference. She paused. My turn? For what? Something real. She looked down at her coffee. I'm 30 years old. I run a company worth 9 figures. I have an architecture degree from Princeton and an MBA from Stanford. Last week, I presented a design to the mayor's office that could reshape the city's entire waterfront. She looked back up. And I'm so goddamn lonely I could scream. The confession hung in the air between them. Daniel didn't know what to say. Didn't trust himself to say anything that wouldn't sound trite or dismissive. Sorry, Ariana said, looking embarrassed. That was probably too much for a first coffee. No. The word came out firm. No, it wasn't. You sure? Because you look like you're trying to figure out the nearest exit. I'm trying to figure out what to say that isn't stupid. Most things people say are stupid. Say it anyway. Daniel took a breath. I get it, the lonely thing. Different circumstances, obviously, but I get it. Single dad life? Single dad life in a city where everyone I used to know is married with 2.5 kids and a labradoodle. Sophie's great. She's everything. But there are nights after she goes to bed when the apartment is so quiet, I can hear my own heartbeat and I think, this is it. This is my life now. Is that bad? I don't know. Sometimes it feels safe. Sometimes it feels like I'm slowly disappearing. Ariana nodded slowly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Disappearing. She picked up her coffee, realized it was empty, set it back down. I take meetings with men who look through me while talking to me. I attend events where people collect me like a trading card. I met Eleanor Blake's daughter. She's brilliant, but cold. I date men who are either intimidated or trying to use me. And through all of it, I keep thinking, does anyone actually see me? Or just the Blake name, and the company, and the penthouse? That sounds unbearable. It is, but it's also what I chose. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. No one forced me to take over the company. No one forced me to build it into what it is. I did that, and now I get to live with the consequences. Still seems unfair. Life's unfair. We both know that. They sat in silence for a moment. Around them, the coffee shop hummed with other people's conversations, other people's lives intersecting and diverging. "Can I ask you something?" Ariana said finally. "Sure." "Why did you really say yes to this coffee?" Daniel considered lying, considered saying something safe and socially acceptable. "Because," he said instead, "for the first time in 2 years, someone asked me a question and actually waited to hear the answer." Ariana's eyes widened slightly. Then she smiled, real, genuine, reaching her eyes this time. "That's the best answer you could have given." "Yeah?" "Yeah." She glanced at her watch. "I have a call in 30 minutes, but I'd like to do this again, if you're interested." "I'm interested." The words came out before Daniel could second-guess them. Ariana's smile widened. "Good. Tomorrow? Same time?" "I'll be here." They stood. There was an awkward moment where neither of them knew quite how to say goodbye. Handshake too formal, hug too familiar. Ariana solved it by touching his arm briefly. "Thanks for this. For being honest. Thanks for not making the accidental like thing weird." "Oh, it was definitely weird. I'm just choosing to find it charming instead." Daniel laughed. "I'll take it." He watched her leave, laptop bag slung over her shoulder, moving through the crowd with the kind of unconscious confidence that came from knowing you belonged anywhere you chose to be. His phone buzzed. "Already looking forward to tomorrow. Try not to accidentally like anyone else before then." He typed back without thinking. "No promises." That night, after Sophie was asleep, Daniel stood in his kitchen staring at his phone. He should tell someone. Should run this by a friend, get an objective opinion on whether this was a spectacularly bad idea. But who? His parents lived 3 states away and still asked when he was going to get back on his feet, like the divorce had knocked him down instead of freed him. His college friends had drifted away during the marriage, uncomfortable with Miranda's circles and his increasing absence. His work colleagues were professional acquaintances at best. He thought about calling Peterson, his 72-year-old neighbor who'd become an unlikely friend. But Peterson would just tell him what he already knew, that getting involved with anyone connected to Miranda was playing with fire. Instead, Daniel opened his laptop and did something he hadn't done in months. He opened his old portfolio. Design work from before. Before the marriage, before Sophie, before everything got complicated. Logos and branding, yes, but also experimental pieces. Architectural sketches he'd done for fun. Building concepts that would never be built but captured something about space and light and human experience. He'd forgotten how much he'd loved it, the pure creativity of it, unmoored from client demands and practical constraints. His phone buzzed again. Random question. What would you design if you could design anything? No budget, no clients, no restrictions. Daniel stared at the message, then at his laptop screen, then back at the message. Why are you asking? Because I'm curious, and because I'm working on a project that's sucking my soul, and I need to remember why I became an architect in the first place. He typed slowly, carefully, a community center, not fancy, just a space where people could come together, library, meeting rooms, maybe a small theater, lots of natural light, spaces that flow into each other but still have distinct identities, architecture that invites instead of intimidates. The response came quickly. That's beautiful. Would you ever design it for real? Would need someone to fund it, preferably someone with 9 figures to spare. Funny you should mention that. Daniel's heart rate picked up. I was joking. I wasn't. Send me your sketches. I don't have sketches. I just made it up off the top of my head. Then make sketches. I'm serious. Send them to me. Ariana? Daniel, this is crazy. Probably. Send them anyway. He looked at his old portfolio, at the architectural sketches gathering digital dust, at the version of himself who'd believed he could create something meaningful. I'll think about it. Good enough. For now. Daniel set his phone down, looked at his laptop, back at his phone, then he opened a new file and started sketching. The next morning felt different. Daniel caught himself humming while making Sophie's lunch, something he never did. Sophie noticed immediately. You're being weird again. I'm in a good mood. Sue me. Good moods are suspicious. What happened? Nothing happened. Can't a person just be happy? Sophie squinted at him with an expression far too knowing for a 6-year-old. You met someone. Daniel nearly dropped the peanut butter jar. What? No, why would you think that? You did the ironing thing yesterday, and now you're humming. You only hum when something good happened. I hum sometimes. Name one time recently. She had him there. Daniel focused very intently on cutting her sandwich into triangles. Maybe I'm just having a good week. Is it a girl? Sophie, it's okay if it's a girl. Ms. Martinez says it's healthy for adults to have relationships. Your teacher said that? We were talking about families. Billy's mom has a new boyfriend and he was worried it was weird. Ms. Martinez said all kinds of families are normal. Daniel sat down across from her, sandwich forgotten. Is this your way of asking if I'm dating someone? Sophie shrugged, trying for casual and not quite landing it. I just want to know if things are changing. His heart twisted. Of course she was worried. The last time things changed, when he and Miranda split, Sophie's whole world had fractured. Shared custody, 2 homes, parents who could barely speak to each other. Bug. He waited until she looked at him. Nothing's changing. I met someone for coffee, that's all. A friend. We talked. That's it. Will I have to meet her? Not unless you want to. Is she nice? Daniel thought about Ariana's directness, her humor, the loneliness in her eyes when she talked about disappearing. Yeah, he said. She's nice. Okay. Sophie picked up her sandwich. But if she's mean to you, I'll tell her to leave. Noted. I feel very protected. You should. I'm fierce. The fiercest. He dropped her at school and drove to the coffee shop with sketches on his passenger seat. Rough architectural concepts he'd worked on until 2 a.m. trying to capture the community center idea. They weren't polished, weren't professional portfolio material, but they were honest. Ariana was already there, same corner table, but this time she wasn't working. She was just sitting, coffee in hand, staring out the window with an expression Daniel couldn't read. She looked up when he approached, and something in her face shifted. Relief, maybe. Or recognition. You came. Why wouldn't I? I thought maybe you'd reconsider. Decide this was too weird. She nodded to the folder under his arm. Did you bring them? Daniel hesitated, then handed over the sketches. Ariana spread them across the table, studying each one with an intensity that made him nervous. These are good, she said finally. They're rough. They're honest. That's better than good. She looked up. This is what you should be doing, not corporate logos. Logos pay for Sophie's orthodontist. So do community center designs if you work with the right people. Daniel shook his head. I can't afford to take on spec work. I've got bills, responsibilities. I'm not talking about spec work. I'm talking about a real project, real budget, real timeline. He stared at her. You're serious. I'm always serious about architecture. She tapped one of the sketches. This flow here, between the library and meeting spaces. That's brilliant. And this use of natural light, you're thinking about how people will move through the space, not just how it looks. Ariana, I can't accept your money. It's not charity, it's business. My firm is looking to expand into community-focused development. This could be a flagship project. She met his eyes. Unless you're going to tell me you're not interested in doing meaningful work. That's not fair. No, it's not. She smiled slightly. But it's true. Daniel looked at his sketches spread across the table, his ideas, his vision, something that could actually matter instead of another soulless corporate rebrand. I'd need time, he said slowly, to develop these properly, to make sure they're right. You'll have it, and I'd need control, creative control. I'm not designing something just to have it committed to death. Agreed. And this can't be about whatever this is. He gestured between them. The coffee, the conversations, this has to be separate. Ariana's expression became unreadable. Is that what you want? For this to be separate? I want to know what this is first. Fair enough. She gathered up the sketches, handed them back to him. Take the weekend. Think about the project. Think about whether you want to do this. Monday, we can talk business. Actually business. And until then? Until then, she picked up her coffee. Tell me more about Sophie. You said she wanted to be an astronaut chef. The subject change was deliberate, but not unwelcome. Daniel relaxed slightly. Last week she wanted to be a veterinarian for space dogs. Are there space dogs? According to Sophie, there will be. She's very concerned about their well-being. Ariana laughed, genuine, unguarded. She sounds amazing. She is. She's everything. Must be hard, doing it alone. Sometimes. Daniel paused. But it's also clear, you know. With Miranda, everything was complicated. Every decision was a negotiation. Every choice had subtext. Now it's just Sophie and me. Simple. Simple can be good. It can, but it can also be lonely. The admission hung between them. Ariana's expression softened. Yeah, she said quietly. It can. They fell into easier conversation after that. Ariana told him about the waterfront project, the impossible demands from the developers, the planning commissioner who kept requesting more green space without understanding the actual constraints of the site. Daniel told her about his last branding project, a startup that wanted their logo to really pop without being able to articulate what that meant. Time slipped away. Other customers came and went. The barista changed shifts. Outside, clouds rolled in, threatening rain. I should go, Ariana said finally, checking her watch. I have a presentation at 2. More impossible demands? Probably. She stood gathering her things. Tomorrow? I thought we were taking the weekend to think. About the project, not about coffee. She smiled. Unless you need to think about that too? Daniel stood as well. Tomorrow works. Same time? I'll be here. This time when they said goodbye, Ariana hugged him briefly. It was quick, almost casual, but Daniel felt the warmth of it long after she'd left. His phone buzzed as he reached his car. Your daughter was right to be suspicious. You are seeing someone. The question is whether you're going to let yourself admit it. Daniel stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed back. Taking things one coffee at a time. That's a very careful answer. I'm a very careful person. I'm starting to notice that. What would happen if you weren't careful? His thumb hovered over the keyboard. A dozen safe responses occurred to him. Deflections, jokes, ways to keep this light and undefined. Instead, he wrote, I'd probably end up doing something stupid, like falling for my ex-wife's sister. He hit send before he could reconsider. The typing indicator appeared immediately. Stayed there. His heart hammered. Would that be so terrible? Yes. Objectively, yes. Miranda would lose her mind. Your family would lose their minds. It would be a disaster. That's not what I asked. It would be terrible and terrifying and complicated beyond measure. But, Daniel closed his eyes, opened them, typed. But I'm starting to think it might be worth it anyway. The response took longer this time. Tomorrow, same time. We'll figure this out. Will we? We'll try. That's all anyone can do. Daniel drove home in a daze, his mind spinning through possibilities and consequences in equal measure. What was he doing? What were they doing? Sophie was at her friend Emma's house for the afternoon, which left Daniel alone with his thoughts. Never a good combination. He tried to work on client projects but couldn't focus. Tried to watch TV, but nothing held his attention. Finally, he did what he always did when overwhelmed. He called his daughter. Emma's mom answered. "Daniel, we were just about to have a snack. Want to talk to Sophie?" "If she's not busy." "Sophie, your dad's on the phone." A moment later, his daughter's voice came through, slightly breathless. "Dad, is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, Bug. Just wanted to hear your voice." "That's weird. You're being weird again." "Maybe I just missed you. I've been gone for 3 hours." "Is there a time limit on missing your kid?" Sophie giggled. "You're being mushy. Are you sure you're okay?" "I'm great, having a good day." "Is it because of the lady?" Daniel's hand tightened on the phone. "What lady?" "The nice lady you said you had coffee with. Did you see her again?" "Yeah, I did." "And?" "And what?" "Was she still nice?" "She was." "Good." A pause. "Emma's mom made cookies. Can I have one?" "Sure, Bug. I'll pick you up at 5. "Love you, Dad." "Love you too." He hung up feeling both better and worse. Better because Sophie's voice always grounded him. Worse because he was keeping things from her. Not lying exactly, but not being fully honest either. When had he become this person? When had simple honesty become so complicated? His phone buzzed. "Still thinking?" "Haven't stopped." "Me either. For what it's worth, I'm terrified too." "Of what?" "This. Whatever this is. I haven't let myself feel anything real in years. And now here you are, with your accidentally liked profile, and your space-obsessed daughter and your honest answers, and I don't know what to do with any of it." Daniel read the message 3 times. Then he called her. She answered on the second ring. "I didn't expect actual phone contact. Neither did I, but texting felt insufficient." "For what?" "For telling you that I understand. The terrified thing. I've spent 2 years building walls, and you just walk through them like they weren't even there." Ariana was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd heard it. "I don't want to hurt you, or Sophie, or anyone. I know. But I also don't want to walk away from this, whatever this becomes." "I know that too. So what do we do?" Daniel looked around his small apartment. At Sophie's drawings on the fridge, at the life he'd carefully constructed from the ruins of his marriage. "We take it slow," he said. "We're honest. We protect Sophie, and we see where this goes." "That sounds reasonable." "It does, doesn't it? Almost suspiciously reasonable. Should we be more reckless?" "God, no. I'm terrified enough as it is." She paused. "Tomorrow, coffee. We'll talk about everything, the project, this thing between us, all of it. Okay?" "Daniel?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for calling, for being honest, for not running. I'm still working on the not running part." "Me too." They said goodbye, and Daniel sat in the gathering darkness of his apartment, phone in hand, feeling like he'd just stepped off a cliff. The question wasn't whether he'd fall. It was whether someone would be there to catch him. The weekend arrived with the kind of unseasonable warmth that made people forget it was still technically spring. Daniel woke Saturday morning to Sophie jumping on his bed, already dressed in her favorite astronaut t-shirt. "Dad! Dad! Dad! We have to go to the Science Museum, today, right now." He groaned, pulling the pillow over his head. "Bug, it's 7 in the morning. The museum opens at 9. We need time to get ready and eat breakfast and drive there, and all right, I'm up." He pushed the pillow aside to find Sophie's face inches from his, eyes wide with determination. "What brought this on?" "Emma's mom took her last week, and she said they have a new space exhibit with real moon rocks, and I need to see it." "Real moon rocks, huh?" "Real ones, Dad, from the actual moon." Daniel couldn't help but smile. "Give me 20 minutes to shower. Go pick out what you want for breakfast." Sophie rocketed off the bed and thundered down the hallway. Daniel lay there for another moment, staring at the ceiling, trying to organize the chaos in his head. Tomorrow he was supposed to meet Ariana again, to talk about the project, about whatever was happening between them. The smart thing would be to back out now, before things got more complicated. But when he thought about not seeing her, Something in his chest tightened uncomfortably. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Early morning thoughts. What if the community center had rooftop gardens? Not just decorative, but functional. Something the neighborhood could actually use. He smiled despite himself. Early morning thoughts. My daughter is making me visit moon rocks at 7 a.m. That's very on brand for her. Moon rocks are important. Apparently critical. Enjoy it. Text me later? Yeah, I will. He set the phone down, that uncomfortable tightness easing slightly. Then he dragged himself to the shower before Sophie could start the countdown again. The Science Museum was predictably packed with families taking advantage of the good weather. Sophie grabbed his hand the moment they walked in, pulling him toward the space exhibit with single-minded focus. Slow down, Bug. The moon rocks aren't going anywhere. But other people might see them first. I don't think they work on a first-come basis. Sophie ignored this logic entirely, weaving through the crowd with Daniel trailing behind. They rounded a corner into the space exhibit, and she stopped so abruptly he nearly ran into her. Whoa, she breathed. The exhibit was impressive. A recreation of the lunar surface dominated the center of the room, complete with American flag and footprints preserved under glass. Interactive displays lined the walls, and there, in a specially lit case, sat 3 small rocks that had traveled nearly 240,000 miles to end up in a museum in their city. Sophie approached the case like it was sacred, pressing her nose almost against the glass. They're so small, she whispered. The most important things usually are, Daniel said, then immediately felt ridiculous for trying to turn moon rocks into a life lesson. But Sophie nodded seriously. Emma said they're billions of years old. 4.5 billion, according to that sign. That's older than Grandma. Significantly older than Grandma. Older than dinosaurs? About the same age as the Earth, actually. They formed around the same time. Sophie processed this, frowning. So the moon is Earth's twin? More like Earth's kid. Most scientists think the moon formed when something huge crashed into Earth a long time ago. A piece broke off and eventually became the moon. That's so cool. Sophie moved to the next display, which showed the phases of the moon. Daniel followed, content to let her explore at her own pace. They spent 2 hours in the exhibit. Sophie asked approximately 8,000 questions, half of which Daniel could answer and half of which required him to read the informational plaques very carefully. By the time they left, his feet hurt and his brain felt stuffed with lunar facts, but Sophie was practically glowing. Can we come back next week? She asked as they walked to the car. Maybe. We'll see. That's parent speak for probably not. That's parent speak for we'll see how the week goes. Sophie climbed into her booster seat, still chattering about impact craters and mare basins. Daniel started the car, only half listening, when his phone rang. Miranda's name flashed on the screen. His good mood evaporated instantly. He sent it to voicemail, but it rang again immediately. Sophie's chatter stopped. Is that Mom? Yeah, Bug, probably just checking in. The lie felt sour in his mouth. Miranda never just checked in. Every call had an agenda. He answered on the third ring, keeping his voice neutral. Hey, we need to talk. Miranda's voice was tight, clipped, the tone she used when she was about to make his life difficult. About? Not over the phone. I'm at the house. How soon can you get here? Daniel's jaw clenched. I'm with Sophie. We're on our way back from the museum. Perfect. Bring her. She can play in the yard while we talk. Miranda, 20 minutes, Daniel. Don't make me wait. She hung up. Daniel sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to push down the familiar spike of anxiety that Miranda's demands always triggered. Dad? Sophie's voice was small. Is everything okay? He met her eyes in the rearview mirror. Everything's fine. Your mom wants to see you for a bit. But it's not her weekend. I know, she just wants to say hi. Sophie didn't look convinced, but she nodded. Daniel pulled out of the parking lot, driving toward the house that used to be his and now felt like enemy territory. Miranda's place was in the part of town where the houses had names instead of just addresses. Manicured lawns, 3-car garages, The kind of neighborhood where homeowners associations sent strongly worded letters about mailbox paint colors. She was waiting on the front porch when they pulled up, arms crossed, wearing the expression Daniel had learned to dread during their marriage. The one that said she'd already decided he was wrong and was just waiting for him to confirm it. "Go play in the backyard, sweetie," Miranda said to Sophie, her voice softening. "Daddy and I need to have a grown-up talk." Sophie looked between them, uncertain. Daniel gave her what he hoped was a reassuring smile. "It's okay, Bug. I'll come get you in a few minutes." Sophie trudged toward the backyard gate, glancing back twice. The moment she disappeared around the corner, Miranda's expression hardened again. Inside. Daniel followed her into the house, trying not to notice all the changes since he'd left. New furniture, new art, new everything, like she'd been erasing him systematically. Miranda turned to face him in the living room, and he saw it in her eyes before she even spoke. Someone had told her something. "I heard an interesting piece of gossip yesterday," she said, voice dangerously calm. "Want to guess what it was about?" "Not particularly." "My sister, and you." There it was. Daniel's stomach dropped. "Who told you?" "Does it matter? Is it true?" "Is what true? We had coffee, that's it." "You had coffee with Ariana." Miranda's laugh was sharp, humorless. "Do you have any idea how that looks?" "Two adults having a conversation? Yeah, I can see how that would be scandalous." "Don't be cute, you know exactly what I mean. My sister, Daniel. Of all the people in this city, you choose my baby sister?" "I didn't choose anything. We ran into each other, we talked, that's all." "Bullshit." Miranda stepped closer, eyes flashing. "I know you. I know when you're lying, and you're lying right now." Daniel held his ground. "What do you want me to say? That we've been seeing each other? We haven't. That there's something going on? There isn't. Not yet. Not yet." She seized on the words. "So you're planning on it?" "I don't know what I'm planning. We're figuring it out." Jesus Christ. Miranda turned away, hands running through her perfectly styled hair. "This is exactly like you, completely inappropriate, terrible timing, and you're doing it anyway because you can't help yourself. That's not fair." "Fair?" She whirled back. "You want to talk about fair? I introduce you to my family, bring you into our world, and the second we're done, you go after my sister? How is that fair to me?" "We've been divorced for 2 years, Miranda. You moved on. I'm allowed to move on too." "Not with Ariana." "Why not?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. She stared at him, mouth working, trying to find the words. "Because," she said finally, "she's family. Because it's weird and wrong, and it makes me look like an idiot. Because everyone will talk and make assumptions, and I'll have to deal with the fallout. So this is about how it makes you look. Everything is about how things look, Daniel. That's how the world works. Something you never understood." There it was. The fundamental difference that had killed their marriage. Miranda lived for appearances, for status, for the carefully constructed image she presented to the world. Daniel had tried to fit into that world and failed spectacularly. "I'm not doing this again," he said quietly, fighting about things that don't matter. "Sophie matters." His blood went cold. "What about Sophie? What kind of environment are you creating for her? Dating family members, confusing her about boundaries? I'm not dating anyone, and even if I was, Sophie has nothing to do with this." "She has everything to do with this." Miranda's voice dropped, became calculating. "A judge might have opinions about a father who makes questionable relationship choices." The threat hung between them, sharp and clear. "You wouldn't." "Try me." Daniel felt rage building in his chest, hot and bitter. "You're going to threaten custody because I had coffee with someone you don't approve of?" "I'm protecting my daughter from instability." "She's my daughter too, and the only instability in her life is you constantly trying to control everything. Get out." "Gladly." He turned toward the backyard, but Miranda grabbed his arm. "I mean it, Daniel. Stay away from Ariana, or I will make your life a living hell." He pulled his arm free. "You already did that. It's called marriage. I survived it once." He found Sophie on the swing set, kicking her legs listlessly. She brightened when she saw him. "Can we go now?" "Yeah, Bug. Let's go home." They drove in silence for the first few minutes. Daniel's hands were shaking on the wheel, adrenaline and anger making it hard to focus. "You and Mom were fighting," Sophie said quietly. "We were having a disagreement." It sounded like fighting. He couldn't lie to her. Wouldn't. "Yeah," he admitted. "We were fighting." "About what?" "Adult stuff. Nothing for you to worry about." "Was it about the lady? The nice one?" Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. "Why would you think that?" "Because Mom asked me yesterday if you were seeing anyone. I said I didn't know, but then she got that face she gets when she's mad." Christ. Miranda had been fishing for information from their 6-year-old daughter. "Bug, listen to me. Whatever happens between your mom and me, it's not your job to be in the middle. If she asks you questions about me, you can tell her you don't know. Or you can tell me and I'll handle it, but it's not your responsibility. Okay?" Sophie nodded, but she looked troubled. "I don't like when you fight." "I know, I don't like it either. Will it get worse if you keep seeing the lady?" The question was too perceptive, too aware of the complications adults created. "Maybe," Daniel said, because he wouldn't lie. "But that's not your problem to solve, that's mine." "Do you like her, the lady?" "I do." Like her?" Despite everything, he smiled. "Maybe." "Then you should keep seeing her, even if Mom gets mad." "It's not that simple, Bug." "Why not? You told me when I have a friend I like, I should be brave and tell them, even if other kids think it's weird." "That's different." "How?" Daniel had no answer for that. His 6-year-old daughter had just distilled the entire situation down to its essence and found him wanting. They got home and Sophie disappeared into her room to draw pictures of moon rocks. Daniel stood in his kitchen, phone in hand, staring at Ariana's last message. He should end this now, before it got messier, before Miranda made good on her threats, before he had to choose between protecting Sophie and pursuing something that might be real. His phone rang. "Ariana." He answered without thinking. "Hey." "Hey." Her voice was cautious. "Bad time?" "Complicated time." "Want to talk about it?" "Not particularly." "Want to talk about anything else?" Daniel closed his eyes. "Yeah, anything else would be great." "Okay, tell me about the moon rocks." So he did. He told her about Sophie's excitement, her questions, the way she'd pressed her nose against the glass like she could absorb knowledge through proximity. He told her about the drive home, the fight he didn't mention, but Ariana probably heard in his voice anyway. "She sounds like an amazing kid," Ariana said when he finished. "She is. She's the best thing I've ever done. I'd like to meet her, properly, I mean, not just in passing." The words should have terrified him. Instead, they felt right. "She'd like that. She's been asking about you." "Has she?" "Wants to know if you're nice. I told her you were." "That's a lot of pressure. What if I'm secretly terrible?" "Are you secretly terrible?" "Jury's still out. I once stole a candy bar when I was 8, never quite recovered from the guilt." Daniel laughed, tension easing. "What kind of candy bar?" "Snickers. I ate it behind the grocery store and then threw up from anxiety. My mom found out anyway and made me go back and pay for it with my allowance." "Eleanor Blake made you pay for a candy bar?" "Eleanor Blake believes in consequences, even for 8-year-olds. Sounds terrifying. She is, but she's also the reason I learned accountability early. A pause. "Speaking of family, did Miranda find out?" Daniel's stomach tightened again. "How did you—" "Because you said it was a complicated time, and your voice has that edge it gets when she's been at you." "What did she say?" "The expected things. That it's inappropriate, that I'm making her look bad, that she'll fight for custody if I don't back off." Ariana was quiet for a long moment. "She threatened Sophie?" "She threatened to threaten Sophie. There's a difference." "Not really." "Ariana, I'm serious. Miranda doesn't make idle threats. If she said she'd go after custody, she meant it." "I know." He leaned against the counter, exhaustion settling into his bones. "Which is why maybe we should step back, before this gets uglier." Another pause, longer this time. "Is that what you want?" Ariana asked finally. No, but it might be what's smart. Smart is overrated. Easy for you to say, your kid isn't on the line. You're right, she's not. Ariana's voice was steady, firm, but I'm not walking away because my sister is throwing a tantrum, and I don't think you should either. This isn't a tantrum. This is a legitimate threat to my custody arrangement. Based on what? That you had coffee with someone? No judge would take that seriously. You don't know Miranda. She's resourceful when she wants to be vindictive. I know her better than you think. I've watched her manipulate people my entire life. The threats are bigger than the follow-through. She's counting on you backing down. Daniel wanted to believe that, but he'd been on the receiving end of Miranda's vindictiveness before. She didn't bluff. I can't risk Sophie, he said quietly. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to not make decisions based on fear. Fear is rational when someone threatens your kid. Agreed. But Miranda can't actually take Sophie. You're a good father. You have stable custody. One judge already decided you deserved that. Miranda would have to prove something actually harmful to challenge it, and coffee dates with me aren't harmful. You're sure about that? I'm sure Miranda wants you to be afraid. Whether she can actually do anything is another question entirely. Daniel rubbed his face, trying to think clearly. I need to talk to my lawyer. That's smart. Do that. But don't make a decision right now while you're still wound up from fighting with her. You sound very calm about all this. I'm furious, actually. But I learned a long time ago that showing emotion when dealing with my family is a losing strategy. They use it against you. That's a depressing way to live. Welcome to the Blake family experience. Her tone softened. Look, I meant what I said. I'm not walking away. But I also won't pressure you. If you decide this is too risky, I'll understand. I won't like it, but I'll understand. And if I decide to keep going, then we keep going, carefully, honestly, with Sophie's well-being first, like we said. Daniel closed his eyes, making a choice that was probably stupid and definitely reckless. Tomorrow, same time? You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. He could hear the smile in her voice. See you tomorrow. After they hung up, Daniel called his lawyer, got voicemail, left a message asking about custody law and hypothetical challenges and how worried he should actually be. Then he went to find Sophie. She was on her bed, surrounded by drawings. Moon rocks featured prominently, along with stick figures labeled me and Dad, standing on what appeared to be the lunar surface. Hey, Bug, can we talk? Sophie set down her marker. Am I in trouble? No? Why would you be in trouble? Because you have your serious face on. I just want to ask you something about the lady I've been seeing. Sophie sat up straighter, interested. If I keep seeing her, Daniel said carefully, your mom might get upset. It might cause some arguments. I need to know if that's going to bother you. Will you and Mom fight more? Possibly. Will I have to choose sides? Never. This is between your mom and me. You don't have to choose anything. Sophie thought about this, chewing her lower lip. Will the lady be nice to me? Yes. Will she try to replace Mom? No one could replace your mom. She's your mom. The lady, her name is Ariana. She'd just be someone I care about. Separate from you and your mom. Like how Emma has a dad and also her mom has a boyfriend? Kind of like that, but not exactly because Ariana and I are just starting to figure things out. Sophie nodded slowly. I think you should see her, if she makes you smile like that. Like what? Like you did when you were on the phone. You looked happy. Daniel's throat tightened. Yeah? Yeah. You don't look happy a lot. Not really happy, but you did then. He pulled her into a hug. This small person who saw too much and understood too well. I love you, Bug. Love you too, Dad. She pulled back. Can I meet her soon? I want to see if she's really nice, or if you're just lying because you like her. I'm not lying. That's exactly what someone who's lying would say. You're too smart for your own good. Grandma says I get that from Mom's side. Your grandma says a lot of things. That night after Sophie was asleep, Daniel sat at his kitchen table with a beer he wasn't drinking and sketches he wasn't working on. His phone sat silent beside him, but his mind was chaos. Miranda's threats, Ariana's confidence, Sophie's perceptiveness, the project sketches that represented everything he'd given up and might get back. The simple fact that for the first time in 2 years, he felt something other than numbness. His phone buzzed. A photo loaded. Ariana, still in her office apparently, holding up a coffee cup at what had to be close to midnight. The message read, "Still thinking. Wanted you to know you're not alone in the overthinking department." He smiled despite himself, took a photo of his untouched beer, sent it back with, "Great minds think too much alike." "Can't sleep either?" "Nope. Too many variables." "Want to talk through them?" "Not sure that would help." "Probably not, but might make the overthinking less lonely." Daniel stared at his phone, at this woman who somehow understood exactly what he needed without him having to explain it. "Call me?" he typed. She did. He answered. "Hey," she said. "Hey." "This is crazy, right? All of this?" "Completely insane." "And we're doing it anyway?" "Looks like it." Ariana laughed softly. "My therapist is going to have a field day with this." "You have a therapist?" "Everyone should have a therapist, especially people with my family." "Fair point." They talked for an hour. About nothing important. About everything important. About the ways their lives had led them to this unlikely intersection. When they finally said goodnight, Daniel felt steadier. Still uncertain, still aware of all the ways this could explode. But steadier. He fell asleep with his phone on the pillow beside him and woke to a message sent at 3 a.m. "Thank you. For not running. For being willing to try. For tomorrow." He typed back, "Thank you for being worth the risk." Then he got up, made coffee, and started sketching a community center that might never exist, but represented everything he'd stopped letting himself want. Tomorrow, he'd see her again. Tomorrow, they'd figure out next steps. Tomorrow, Miranda might make good on her threats or might be bluffing like Ariana said. But today, right now, in the quiet of his kitchen with morning light filtering through cheap blinds, Daniel let himself hope. It was terrifying. It was also the most alive he'd felt in years. Sunday morning came with rain, the kind that turned the city gray and made everything feel heavier. Daniel stood in front of his closet for the third time, second-guessing every choice. Meeting for coffee was one thing. What they were about to do felt different, weighted with implications he wasn't ready to examine too closely. Sophie knocked on his door, already dressed in jeans and her favorite hoodie with planets on it. "You're doing the shirt thing again," she observed. "What shirt thing?" "Where you put one on, look in the mirror, make a face, then try another one." She counted on her fingers. "You've done it 4 times now." "Have not." "Have 2. I've been watching." She flopped on his bed. "Is today the day I meet her?" Daniel's hand stilled on the navy sweater he'd been considering. "How did you know about today?" "Because you're acting even weirder than normal. And you made fancy breakfast. You only make fancy breakfast when something important is happening." A pancakes instead of cereal did seem to have given him away. "Yeah," he admitted. "Today's the day, if you still want to." Sophie sat up, suddenly serious. "What if she doesn't like me?" "Bug, that's impossible. You're extremely likable. But what if I'm weird and she thinks you made a mistake and then she leaves and you're sad again?" Daniel sat beside her, heart aching at the weight she carried. 6 years old and already worried about managing adult emotions. "First," he said, "you're not responsible for my happiness. That's my job. Second, Ariana already knows about you, about how smart you are and how you ask a million questions and how you want to cook food in space. She's not expecting perfect. She's expecting you. What if I don't like her? Then you tell me, honestly, and we figure it out." Sophie chewed her lip. "Does she know about space?" "Some. She's an architect. She designs buildings." "That's kind of like space. Buildings go up high." That's one way to think about it." "Okay." Sophie nodded, decision made. "I'll meet her. But if she's mean, I'm telling her I don't like her. Miss Martinez says we should use our words when people make us uncomfortable." "Miss Martinez is very wise." They drove to the park Ariana had suggested, windshield wipers beating a nervous rhythm. Sophie pressed her face against the window, watching the rain. What if the playground is too wet? We'll figure something out. What if... Bug. It's going to be fine. But his own stomach was churning. What if this was a mistake? What if seeing them together made everything too real, too fast? What if Sophie hated Ariana? Or worse, what if Ariana realized that dating someone with a kid was more complicated than she'd imagined? He spotted her car in the parking lot, then spotted her, standing under the covered pavilion area, looking out at the rain. She turned as they approached, and Daniel saw the exact moment she noticed them. Her expression shifted, something between nervous and hopeful. Sophie grabbed his hand tighter. That's her? That's her. She's pretty. Yeah. You're being weird again. Probably going to be weird for a while, Bug. Bear with me. They reached the pavilion, and suddenly Daniel didn't know what to do with his hands. Hug? Handshake? Stand there awkwardly? Ariana solved it by crouching down to Sophie's level. Hi, you must be Sophie. Your dad's told me a lot about you. But Sophie studied her with the intensity she usually reserved for new science exhibits. He told me about you too. Good things, I hope. He said you're nice and you design buildings and you have a fancy office. 2 out of 3 is accurate. My office is actually pretty boring. Do you have a window? Several? Then it's fancy. Our apartment only has small windows. Dad says it's because we're on the ground floor and windows are expensive. Daniel winced. Sophie, but Ariana just smiled. Your dad's right. Good windows are expensive. But you know what's better than fancy windows? What? Being close to the ground. Means you can have a garden if you want. High-rise apartments can't do that. Sophie brightened. We have a garden. Well, it's kind of a garden, mostly weeds. But Dad planted tomatoes last year and we got 3 whole tomatoes. 3 is a good start. This year you might get 6. Or 12. Aiming high, I like it. Sophie's grip on Daniel's hand loosened slightly. He watched the two of them, something in his chest doing complicated things. Can we sit? Ariana asked. I brought cards. Thought maybe we could play something if the playground was too wet. What kind of cards? Regular ones. We could play Go Fish or War, or I could teach you this game my dad taught me called Trash. Your dad? Sophie's eyes widened. I thought you only had a mom. Everyone has a dad somewhere. Mine just travels a lot for work. When he's home, we play cards. My dad's always home, because he works at home. Sophie said it like a badge of honor. He makes logos on his computer. I've seen some of his work. He's really talented. Sophie looked up at Daniel. She knows about your work? We've talked about it, Daniel said. That's good. Dad doesn't talk about his work enough. I think it's because Mom always said it wasn't a real job. Silence dropped like a stone. Sophie, Daniel said carefully. What? She did say that. I heard her tell Grandma that you played on computers all day instead of having a real career. Ariana's expression hardened for just a moment before smoothing back to neutral. Your mom was wrong. Design is absolutely a real job, an important one. Sophie seemed satisfied with this. That's what I think too. Can we play cards now? They settled at one of the pavilion's picnic tables. Ariana dealt for Go Fish, and within 10 minutes, Sophie was completely absorbed in trying to get all 4 threes. Daniel watched them, his daughter's initial wariness melting into easy conversation. Got any 7s? Sophie asked. Go Fish. Ugh, you're too good at this. I've had practice. Used to play with my sister when we were kids. Sophie perked up. You have a sister? Daniel's stomach dropped. He'd been waiting for this, the moment when Sophie connected the dots. I do, Ariana said smoothly. She's older than me. Is she nice? Sometimes. We don't see each other much anymore. Why not? Grown-up stuff. We had some disagreements. About what? Sophie, Daniel intervened gently. That's a lot of questions. But I want to know. I know, Bug, but maybe we should... It's okay, Ariana said. She looked at Sophie seriously. We disagreed about what's important. She thinks some things matter that I don't think matter, and I think some things matter that she doesn't. So we don't spend much time together. Sophie considered this. Do you miss her? Sometimes, but missing someone doesn't mean you have to be around them if they're not good for you. Miss Martinez says that too. about toxic people. Your Ms. Martinez is very smart. She really is. Sophie played a card. Do you have any threes? The rain picked up, drumming harder on the pavilion roof. They played 3 rounds of Go Fish, then switched to War. Sophie won twice, crowing with delight both times. Ariana was a good loser, dramatic in her defeat in a way that made Sophie giggle. Daniel felt himself relaxing, the knot in his chest loosening. This was okay. This was more than okay. I'm hungry, Sophie announced eventually. There's a diner near here, Ariana said. Makes terrible coffee but great pancakes. If you're interested? Sophie looked at Daniel. He looked at Ariana. Something passed between them, an acknowledgement that they were crossing another line, moving from planned meeting to spontaneous time together. Pancakes sound good, he said. The diner was exactly as advertised. Worn vinyl booths, laminate tables, a waitress who called everyone honey and didn't bother writing down orders. Sophie ordered chocolate chip pancakes. Daniel got the breakfast special. Ariana ordered just coffee, which Sophie immediately objected to. You have to eat something. Dad says breakfast is the most important meal. Does he? He says it every morning, even when he's just having coffee. Your dad's a hypocrite then. What's a hypocrite? Daniel pointed his fork at Ariana. Thanks for that. Someone who says one thing and does another, Ariana explained. Like if I told you to eat vegetables, but I never ate vegetables myself. Oh yeah, Dad's totally a hypocrite then. He tells me to eat carrots, but he picks them out of his own food. Betrayed by my own daughter. It's the truth. Sophie turned to Ariana. Do you like carrots? They're fine. Not my favorite. What's your favorite food? Probably Thai food. Good pad Thai can fix most bad days. What's pad Thai? Rice noodles with peanuts and vegetables and sometimes chicken. It's sweet and salty at the same time. Sophie wrinkled her nose. That sounds weird. It's delicious. Maybe your dad can take you sometime. The casual suggestion of a future together landed heavily. Daniel caught Ariana's eye. She looked slightly panicked, like she'd said too much too fast. Maybe, he said carefully, if Sophie wants to try new things. I want to try things, Sophie said. Just not carrots or mushrooms or anything that looks slimy. That's fair criteria, Ariana said. The food arrived. Sophie dove into her pancakes with enthusiasm. Daniel picked at his eggs, hyper-aware of Ariana sitting across from him, of Sophie chattering between bites, of how this looked to anyone watching. A family. That's what they looked like. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, it felt almost comfortable. Can I ask you something? Sophie said suddenly, looking at Ariana. Sure. Are you dating my dad? Daniel choked on his coffee. Ariana's eyes widened, but she recovered faster. We're getting to know each other, she said carefully, seeing if we want to date. But you like him. I do like him. Like him? Ariana glanced at Daniel, amused. Like him. Sophie nodded, satisfied. Good, because he likes you too. He smiles at his phone when you text. Sophie, Daniel said weakly, it's true, you do. Can we talk about literally anything else? Why? Are you embarrassed? Sophie grinned wickedly. Dad's embarrassed. His ears get red when he's embarrassed. They do, Ariana confirmed, smiling. It's kind of cute. Now you're both against me. Yep, Sophie said cheerfully. They finished breakfast with Sophie continuing to divulge every embarrassing detail she could think of. Daniel wanted to be mortified but found himself laughing instead. Ariana was laughing too, genuine and unguarded in a way he hadn't seen before. When they left the diner, the rain had stopped. Weak sunlight filtered through breaking clouds. Can we go to the playground now? Sophie asked. It's not raining anymore. Everything's going to be wet, Daniel warned. So, we can dry off. He looked at Ariana. You don't have to. I want to, unless you're trying to get rid of me. Definitely not. They walked to the playground. Sophie ran ahead, testing equipment for wetness levels. Daniel fell into step beside Ariana. She's great, Ariana said quietly. Really great. She likes you. How can you tell? Because she's being herself. When she doesn't like people, she gets really formal and polite. With you, she's just Sophie. That's a relief. I was terrified she'd hate me. Why would she hate you? Because I'm a complication. Because her life is already complicated enough without some stranger showing up and making things harder. You're not making things harder. Your ex-wife would disagree. Daniel's jaw tightened. Miranda doesn't get a vote in this. She does if she makes good on those threats. My lawyer called back this morning, said without evidence of actual harm or neglect, Miranda has no grounds for a custody challenge. The accidental like and some coffee dates don't constitute harm. And if she manufactures evidence, then we deal with it. But I'm not making decisions based on what Miranda might do. I spent my entire marriage doing that. I'm done. Ariana stopped walking, turned to face him. You're sure? Because once we're actually doing this, it gets harder to walk away. I don't want to walk away. Even knowing it'll be messy, especially knowing that. I'm tired of safe. Safe got me nowhere. Something shifted in Ariana's expression. Okay then. Okay? Okay. We're doing this. Actually doing this. Yeah, we are. Sophie's voice rang out across the playground. Dad, Ariana, come see. The slide is almost dry. They walked toward her together, not quite touching, but close enough that their hands brushed occasionally. Each time it happened, Daniel felt it like electricity. Sophie made them watch her go down the slide 17 times. Then the swings. Then the monkey bars, which she couldn't quite complete but was determined to master. You can do it, Ariana called. One more bar. My hands are tired. So rest for a minute, then try again. Sophie dropped to the ground, shaking out her hands. Do you know how to do monkey bars? Haven't tried in about 20 years. You should try now. I'm wearing nice clothes. So? They're just clothes. Ariana looked at Daniel. He shrugged, grinning. She's got a point. You're not helping. Never said I would. Ariana sighed dramatically, then approached the monkey bars. She made it 3 rungs before her hand slipped. She landed in the mulch, laughing. See? Sophie said. It's hard. It really is. How do you make it so far? Practice, and I'm lighter than you. Also a valid point. They spent another hour at the playground. Daniel pushed Sophie on the swings while Ariana attempted the monkey bars twice more, failing both times but laughing each time she fell. When Sophie finally declared herself exhausted, they walked back to the parking lot slowly, Sophie between them, holding both their hands. Can Ariana come over? Sophie asked as they reached the cars. Bug? She probably has things to do. I don't, actually, Ariana said. If the invitation's open. Sophie looked up at Daniel. Can she, Dad? Please? He looked at Ariana. She looked back, expression neutral, but eyes hopeful. Yeah, he said. She can. The drive back to the apartment felt surreal. Daniel kept glancing in the rearview mirror, watching Ariana's car following them, trying to process that this was happening, that he was bringing her to his home, letting her further into his life. Their apartment looked especially small when they walked in. Worn furniture, scuffed floors, Sophie's drawings covering every available surface. Nothing like the spaces Ariana was probably used to, but she didn't seem to notice. She looked around with genuine interest, pausing at Sophie's space drawings on the fridge. Did you make all of these? Most of them. Some are from school. They're really good. You've got the planet sizes pretty accurate. I looked them up. Jupiter is way bigger than Earth. Like way, way bigger. Did you know there's a storm on Jupiter that's been going for hundreds of years? It's called the Great Red Spot. Sophie's eyes went wide. A storm for hundreds of years? At least, maybe thousands. No one knows exactly when it started. That's so cool. Dad, did you know that? I did not know that. Ariana knows more about space than you do. Apparently so. Sophie grabbed Ariana's hand. Come see my room. I have glow-in-the-dark stars on my ceiling. She dragged Ariana down the hallway. Daniel stood in the kitchen, listening to their voices. Sophie explaining each constellation placement with scientific precision she'd clearly memorized. His phone buzzed. Miranda. We need to talk. Call me. He deleted the message without responding. Whatever she wanted could wait. Ariana emerged from Sophie's room 10 minutes later, smiling. She's giving her stuffed animals a lecture about planetary formation. That sounds about right. Your daughter is brilliant. She's something. They stood in the kitchen, suddenly aware they were alone. The apartment felt smaller, more intimate. Coffee? Daniel offered. Fair warning, it's nowhere near as good as Momentum's. I'll risk it. He made coffee while she leaned against the counter, watching him. The silence wasn't uncomfortable exactly, but it was charged with things unsaid. So, Ariana said finally, we're doing this. Seems like it. Your daughter approves. She does. That's terrifying in its own way. Why terrifying? Because if this doesn't work out, I'm not the only one who gets hurt. Ariana was quiet for a moment. We could stop now, before Sophie gets more attached. Is that what you want? No, but I want to make sure you've thought it through, all the implications. Daniel handed her a mug. I've thought about nothing else for days. Every reason why this is a bad idea. Every way it could blow up. And I keep coming back to the same conclusion, which is that I don't care. Or I care, but not enough to stop. Ariana took a sip of coffee, made a face. You weren't kidding. This is terrible. Told you. I'm drinking it anyway. Why? She met his eyes. Because you made it for me. The moment stretched between them. Daniel was acutely aware of how close she was, of the way her hair had come loose from its clip, of the fact that they were alone in his kitchen and Sophie was occupied in her room. I should probably tell you something, Ariana said quietly. What? I'm terrified too. Of this. Of getting it wrong. Of hurting you or Sophie. Of having my family implode. Of every possible way this could end badly. And yet here you are. Here I am. She set down her coffee. Because despite all of that, I haven't felt this alive in years. And I'm selfish enough to want to see where it goes. That's not selfish. Isn't it? Knowing the complications, the potential fallout, and doing it anyway? That's called taking a chance. There's a difference. Is there? Daniel moved closer, closing the distance between them. Yeah, there is. He could see her pulse beating in her throat, could count the flecks of gold in her dark eyes, could reach out and touch her if he wanted to. Daniel, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Yeah? If you're going to kiss me, do it before I lose my nerve. So he did. It was soft at first, tentative, testing. Then Ariana's hands were in his hair and his were at her waist, and it was everything and nothing like he'd imagined. She tasted like terrible coffee and something sweet he couldn't identify. She made a small sound against his mouth that shot straight through him. They broke apart when Sophie's voice called from the hallway. Dad? Can Ariana stay for dinner? Ariana stepped back, cheeks flushed, hair more disheveled than before. Daniel tried to remember how to form words. Maybe? Sophie appeared in the doorway, looked between them, grinned knowingly. You were kissing. Sophie, it's okay. People who like each other kiss. That's normal. She turned to Ariana. So can you stay? Dad makes really good spaghetti. Ariana looked at Daniel. He shrugged helplessly. I do make pretty good spaghetti, he admitted. Then I'd love to stay, Ariana said. Dinner was chaos. Sophie talked nonstop, asking Ariana questions about everything from her favorite color to whether she believed in aliens. Ariana answered each one seriously, never condescending, never dismissive. Daniel watched them together and felt something dangerous taking root in his chest. Hope, maybe. Or something bigger than hope. After dinner, Sophie insisted on showing Ariana her favorite movie about astronauts. They ended up on the couch, Sophie between them, explaining plot points Ariana had clearly already figured out. Halfway through, Sophie fell asleep, head on Daniel's shoulder. She's out, Ariana whispered. Movie always does this. I've never actually seen the ending. Should we turn it off? Probably, but if I move, she'll wake up. I could help carry her to bed? Together, they managed to get Sophie to her room without fully waking her. She mumbled something about Mars rovers and settled immediately into sleep. Back in the living room, they stood awkwardly. It was nearly 9. Ariana should probably go, but Daniel didn't want her to. I should, Ariana started. Stay, Daniel said. Then, realizing how that sounded, I mean, for a bit, if you want. Ariana smiled. I want. They sat on the couch, closer than necessary. Daniel's heart was still racing from the kiss earlier, from having her in his space, from how natural this all felt despite being completely insane. Can I ask you something? Ariana said. Sure. What changed between yesterday when you were ready to back off and today when you kissed me in your kitchen? Daniel thought about it. Sophie, I think. She asked me why I couldn't just be brave and tell someone I liked them, like I always tell her to do. And I realized I was being a coward. You're not a coward. I've been one for 2 years. Safe choices, low risks, no complications. It was easier than being hurt again. And now? Now I'm tired of easy, and you're worth the risk. Ariana leaned into him, head on his shoulder. What happens next? I don't know. We figure it out as we go? That's not much of a plan. It's all I've got. She laughed softly. Okay, we'll figure it out. They sat like that for a while, not talking, just being together. Eventually, Ariana had to leave. Daniel walked her to her car, suddenly reluctant to let her go. Tomorrow? She asked. Can't tomorrow. Sophie has a school thing. Tuesday? Tuesday works. She paused, hand on her car door. Thank you for today, for letting me in. Thank you for staying. She kissed him again, quick and soft, then got in her car. Daniel watched her drive away, standing in the parking lot until her taillights disappeared. When he went back inside, he found a note on the kitchen counter in Sophie's handwriting. I like her. She can stay. Love, Sophie. P.S. You're still being weird, but now it's okay weird. He smiled, tucked the note in his pocket, and allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, this would work out. Then his phone rang. Miranda's name flashing. He stared at it for 3 rings before answering. What? We're having a family dinner Tuesday night. You're coming, both of you. Miranda, I'm not. Mother insists. She wants to discuss some things with you, about custody arrangements. His blood ran cold. What custody arrangements? Nothing's changed. Just come to dinner, Daniel. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. She hung up. Daniel stood in his kitchen, the warmth from the day evaporating, replaced by cold dread. It was starting. Whatever Miranda had planned, it was starting, and he had no idea how to stop it. Daniel barely slept that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through every possible scenario. Eleanor Blake didn't do casual family dinners. She did strategic meetings disguised as social obligations. Whatever was coming on Tuesday wasn't going to be pleasant. He thought about calling Ariana, then decided against it. She'd just left. He didn't want to seem desperate or clingy, but his phone felt heavy in his hand and the silence of the apartment pressed down on him. At 2 a.m., it buzzed. Can't sleep either. Keep thinking about today, about that kiss, about the fact that Miranda's probably plotting something terrible, and we're going to have to deal with it, but mostly about the kiss. Daniel smiled despite the anxiety churning in his gut. The kiss was good. Good? That's all you've got? Good? Great. Amazing. Life-altering. Better. What are you doing up? He hesitated, then typed honestly. Miranda called, demanded I come to a family dinner Tuesday night. Said Eleanor wants to discuss custody arrangements. The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Shit. Yeah. She's moving faster than I thought. This is my mother's playbook. Summon everyone, make it formal, apply maximum pressure. Should I not go? If you don't go, they'll say you're being difficult, uncooperative. They'll use it against you. If I do go, they'll ambush me. Probably, but at least you'll know what you're facing. Daniel rubbed his eyes, exhaustion and stress making everything feel worse. I don't want Sophie anywhere near this. Agreed. Can you get someone to watch her? Peterson next door, maybe, if I bribe him with casserole. Do it. And Daniel? Yeah? I'm coming with you. His fingers froze over the keyboard. What? No, that's exactly what they want. Proof that we're together, ammunition to use against me. They already know we're together. Miranda made sure of that when she called this dinner. Having me there changes the dynamic. Makes it harder for them to bully you. Or it makes everything worse. Possibly, but I'm not letting you walk into that house alone. Not for this. Ariana, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. Besides, this stops being just about you the moment they decided to make it about me. I deserve to be there. Daniel wanted to argue, wanted to protect her from what he knew was coming. But she was right. This involved her now, whether she wanted it to or not. Okay, but when it gets ugly, and it will get ugly, don't say I didn't warn you. I grew up in that house. I know exactly how ugly it gets. See you tomorrow? Sophie's school thing is at 10. Could do lunch after? Send me the address. I'll meet you there. They texted for another hour, neither wanting to be alone with their thoughts. Eventually, Daniel fell into restless sleep, dreams full of courtrooms and disapproving faces, and Ariana's hand slipping out of his. Monday morning came too fast. Sophie was excited about the school assembly, chattering through breakfast about the solar system presentation her class was doing. Daniel tried to focus on her enthusiasm, but his mind kept circling back to Tuesday. You're doing the worried face, Sophie observed. Just thinking about work stuff. You're a bad liar. Your eye twitches when you lie. Does not. Does too. It's doing it right now. Daniel gave up. Fine. I'm a little stressed, but nothing you need to worry about. Is it about Mom? Why would you think that? Because you always get stressed about Mom, and you have that thing with her tomorrow night. He'd forgotten he'd mentioned the dinner to Sophie. Vaguely. Not the details. How do you know about tomorrow? I heard you on the phone. You weren't exactly quiet. Well, she pushed her cereal around. Are you in trouble? No, Bug. I'm not in trouble. Then why do you have to go to Grandma's house? Just to talk about some things. About me? Daniel's heart squeezed. Some, but nothing bad. Just boring grown-up stuff about schedules and arrangements. Sophie didn't look convinced. She was too smart, too aware of the undercurrents adults tried to hide. Is Ariana going? Yeah, she's going to be there. Good. Grandma's scary. Ariana can help. Grandma's not scary. Sophie gave him a look that said she knew better. Eleanor Blake was absolutely scary, even to adults. To a 6-year-old, she must be terrifying. They arrived at school early. The assembly was in the gymnasium, parents cramming into uncomfortable bleachers. Daniel spotted Ariana immediately. She dressed down, jeans and a simple sweater, trying to blend in. She still stood out. She waved when she saw them. Sophie ran over, launching into an immediate explanation of where she'd be sitting during the presentation and which planet she was responsible for. Saturn? Sophie said proudly. Because it has the most moons. Well, maybe. Jupiter might have more, but scientists keep finding new ones, so it's hard to say for sure. Saturn's an excellent choice, Ariana said seriously. The rings alone make it the best planet aesthetically. That's what I said. But Tommy Chen says Jupiter is better because it's bigger. But size isn't everything. Saturn has style. Sophie grinned and ran off to join her class. Daniel and Ariana found seats near the back. You didn't have to come, he said quietly. I wanted to. Thought you could use the moral support. For elementary school assembly? For existing, you look exhausted. Didn't sleep much. Me either. She took his hand, hidden between them where other parents couldn't easily see. We'll get through tomorrow, whatever happens. You sound more confident than I feel. One of us has to be. Might as well be the person who grew up dealing with Eleanor Blake's intimidation tactics. The assembly started. Sophie's class filed onto the stage, each kid holding a poster of their assigned planet. Sophie stood extra straight, her Saturn poster carefully painted with rings that sparkled with glitter. The presentation was chaotic and adorable. Kids forgot their lines, spoke too quietly, or shouted random facts with excessive enthusiasm. Sophie delivered her Saturn facts clearly and precisely, exactly as rehearsed. Daniel felt a surge of pride so intense it hurt. When it ended, parents filed out slowly. Daniel and Ariana waited for Sophie, who emerged from backstage beaming. Did you see? I didn't forget anything. You were perfect, Daniel said. You were brilliant, Ariana added. Best planet representation by far. Tommy's Jupiter poster had a spelling mistake. He wrote Jupiter. What? See? Rookie error. They walked to the parking lot together. Other parents glanced over, curious about the unfamiliar woman with Daniel and his daughter. Let them look. Daniel was done caring what people thought. Lunch? He suggested. There's a good sandwich place near here. Please, Sophie said. I'm starving. School lunch is in like 3 hours, and that's forever. The sandwich shop was crowded, but they found a table by the window. Sophie ordered a grilled cheese, Daniel got a club, and Ariana ordered a salad that Sophie immediately declared not a real meal. Salads can be real meals, Ariana protested. Salads are what you eat before the real food comes. Your dad's raising you with strong opinions about food. Dad says opinions are important as long as you can defend them. Smart dad. They ate and talked about everything except tomorrow. Sophie dominated the conversation, as usual, jumping from topic to topic with 6-year-old logic that made perfect sense in her head and nowhere else. After lunch, Sophie announced she wanted to go to the bookstore. There was a new book about black holes she absolutely needed. You just got 3 books last week, Daniel said. That was last week. This is this week. Totally different. The math doesn't check out. Please, I'll read them all. I promise. Daniel looked at Ariana. She was trying not to smile. Don't look at me, Va, she said. I'm not the parent here. But you have an opinion. I think supporting a child's love of reading is important, and black holes are fascinating. You're not helping. Never said I would. They went to the bookstore. Sophie disappeared into the science section immediately. Daniel and Ariana browsed nearby, keeping her in sight but giving her space. She's going to bankrupt you with book purchases, Ariana observed. Already has. I've had to create a separate budget category. That's actually kind of great. The bankruptcy part. The fact that she loves learning this much. You're doing something right. Daniel felt warmth spread through his chest. Thanks. I try. Most days I feel like I'm making it up as I go. That's parenting. No one actually knows what they're doing. Some people are just better at pretending. Sophie returned with not 1, but 2 books. Daniel opened his mouth to object, saw her hopeful expression, and sighed. Fine. 2 books. But that's it for this month. Deal! At the register, Ariana pulled out her card before Daniel could stop her. I've got it, she said. You don't have to. I know. I want to. She smiled at Sophie. Consider it congratulations for nailing the Saturn presentation. Sophie hugged her spontaneously. Thank you. These are going to be so good. In the car afterward, Sophie read aloud from the Black Hole book, explaining concepts she barely understood with complete confidence. Daniel drove and listened and tried to memorize this moment, this feeling. Before tomorrow complicated everything. That evening, after Sophie was in bed, Daniel called Peterson. His neighbor answered on the 4th ring. This better be good. Jeopardy's on. Need a favor. Can you watch Sophie tomorrow night? Few hours, maybe less. Hot date? Family dinner. Same thing with your ex-wife's family. What's the occasion? Ambush probably. They want to discuss custody. Peterson was quiet for a moment. They got grounds? No, but Eleanor Blake doesn't need grounds. She needs leverage and intimidation. And you're walking into it anyway? Don't have a choice. There's always a choice, son. Sometimes they all just suck. Peterson sighed. I'll watch the kid. But you owe me that casserole you keep promising. I'll make 2. Damn right you will. Daniel hung up feeling marginally better. At least Sophie would be safe, away from whatever happened tomorrow. His phone buzzed. Ariana. Second thoughts yet? About 50 of them. You? At least 100. Still going, though. Why? Because running away doesn't stop the problem. It just postpones it. Better to face it head on. You sound very rational about something that's going to be a disaster. I'm good at sounding rational. The internal screaming is very quiet. Daniel smiled despite himself. What time should I pick you up? I'll drive myself. Meet you there at 7? You sure? If things go really badly, I want my own exit. Don't want to be dependent on anyone for a ride home. It was practical and depressing in equal measure. Daniel understood completely. Tuesday arrived with unseasonable cold, like the weather was matching his mood. He dropped Sophie at Peterson's with her overnight bag and strict instructions about bedtime. "I know how to put a kid to bed," Peterson grumbled. "Raised 3 of my own." "I know. I'm just nervous. I get it. Go. Face the firing squad. We'll be fine." Sophie hugged Daniel tight. "Good luck at Grandma's. Don't let her be mean to you." "I'll try, Bug. And don't let her be mean to Ariana either." "That's the plan." He drove to Eleanor Blake's house in a daze. The neighborhood looked the same as it had years ago when he'd first visited as Miranda's boyfriend. Old money, old trees, old families who'd been important since before importance meant anything different. The Blake mansion sat at the end of a circular drive. White columns, perfect lawn, the kind of house that appeared in architecture magazines and made everyone else feel inadequate. Ariana's car was already there. She stood on the front steps, arms crossed, staring at the door like it might attack her. Daniel parked and joined her. "Ready?" "Absolutely not. You?" "Same." She took his hand, squeezed once. "Whatever happens in there, we're in this together. Agreed?" "Agreed." They rang the doorbell. A housekeeper Daniel didn't recognize answered, led them through the marble foyer to the formal dining room. The table was set for 5. Crystal glasses, fine china, centerpiece flowers that probably cost more than Daniel's monthly rent. Eleanor Blake sat at the head of the table. She'd aged in the 2 years since Daniel had seen her, new lines around her mouth, gray threading through her perfectly styled hair. But her eyes were the same, sharp, calculating, missing nothing. Miranda sat to her right, wearing the expression of someone who'd already won. Beside her was a man Daniel didn't recognize. Late 40s, expensive suit, lawyer written all over him. "Daniel," Eleanor said, voice cool, "how kind of you to join us. And Ariana, what a surprise." "I doubt anything surprises you, Mother," Ariana said evenly. "Sit, both of you. We have things to discuss." They sat across from Miranda and the lawyer. The housekeeper poured wine. Daniel didn't touch his. Neither did Ariana. "This is Robert Chen," Eleanor said, gesturing to the lawyer. "He's been advising us on some family matters." "What family matters, Daniel asked. "Your custody arrangement with Sophie, primarily. We have some concerns." "What concerns? The arrangement's been working fine for 2 years." "Has it?" Miranda leaned forward. "Because from what I've observed, you've been making questionable decisions lately. Exposing Sophie to inappropriate relationships, creating instability. Having coffee with someone isn't creating instability. Having coffee with my sister is. It's confusing for Sophie. It's inappropriate. It demonstrates poor judgment." Daniel's hands clenched under the table. "Sophie met Ariana. She liked her. There was nothing inappropriate about it." "You introduced our daughter to your girlfriend without consulting me first," Miranda snapped. "That's absolutely inappropriate." "She's not my girlfriend. He stopped. What were they exactly? "We're seeing each other, that's all. And I don't need your permission for who I date." "You do when it involves my family and my daughter." "Our daughter, and no, I don't." Eleanor raised a hand. Silence fell immediately. "This is precisely the problem," she said calmly. "You're being defensive, combative, unable to see reason. These are not qualities we want influencing Sophie's development." Daniel felt ice forming in his veins. "What are you saying?" "We're saying that perhaps the current custody arrangement isn't in Sophie's best interest. Perhaps she'd be better served with more stability, more appropriate role models. You want to change custody." It wasn't a question. "We want what's best for Sophie," Eleanor said. "Surely you want that too." "Of course I want what's best for her. And what's best for her is the arrangement we already have." "Is it?" The lawyer spoke for the first time. "Mr. Hayes, I've reviewed your financial situation. Freelance income, rented apartment, no significant savings. Meanwhile, Miranda can provide private schools, college funds, opportunities you simply cannot match. Sophie doesn't need private schools. She needs her father. She needs stability, security, things you're frankly not in a position to provide." Ariana's hand found Daniel's under the table. Her voice was ice when she spoke. This is ridiculous. Daniel's an excellent father. Sophie's happy, healthy, thriving. You have no grounds for challenging custody. Ariana, this doesn't concern you, Eleanor said. Like hell it doesn't. You're using me as ammunition against him. That makes it my concern. You're proving our point. This relationship is causing conflict, creating problems where none existed before. The only problem is you manufacturing a crisis to maintain control. Eleanor's expression hardened. Watch your tone. Or what? You'll threaten my custody too? Ariana laughed, sharp and bitter. I don't have kids, Mother. You don't have leverage over me anymore. Don't I? Eleanor's smile was thin. Your company's expansion project needs city approval. Approvals that can be delayed, complicated, made difficult by well-placed phone calls. You wouldn't. Try me. Daniel watched the exchange, rage building in his chest. This was what the Blakes did. Threatened, manipulated, used power to crush anyone who didn't fall in line. Enough, he said quietly. Everyone turned to him. This isn't about Sophie's well-being. This is about control. About punishing me for moving on. About putting Ariana back in her place. Well, it's not going to work. Mr. Hayes, the lawyer started. I'm not finished. You want to challenge custody? Go ahead. Try. You'll lose. Because I have 2 years of documentation showing I'm a good father. School records, medical records, teachers who'll testify that Sophie's happy and healthy. You have what? The fact that I'm dating someone you don't approve of? That won't hold up in any court. Daniel, Miranda began. No, you don't get to do this anymore. You don't get to use Sophie as a weapon because you're angry. I've found someone who actually gives a damn about me. You had your chance. You walked away. You don't get to punish me for moving on. He stood. Ariana stood with him. We're done here, Daniel said. Sit down, Eleanor commanded. No, I came because you demanded it. I listened to your threats. Now I'm leaving. If you want to challenge custody, talk to my lawyer. Her name is Sarah Chen. Ironically, no relation to your guy here. He turned toward the door. Ariana followed. Daniel! Miranda's voice was sharp. If you walk out that door, this gets ugly. It's already ugly, he said without turning back. You made it ugly the second you threatened Sophie. They made it to the foyer before Eleanor's voice rang out. Ariana Blake, if you walk out with him, there will be consequences. Ariana stopped, turned. There are always consequences with you, Mother. I'm tired of being afraid of them. Then she took Daniel's hand and they walked out together. The night air hit like a slap. Daniel was shaking, adrenaline and rage making his hands unsteady. Ariana was trembling too. That was, she started, awful, terrible, worse than I imagined. I was going to say liberating. He looked at her. She was smiling, fierce and defiant. Liberating? I've never stood up to her like that, never, and it felt amazing. Despite everything, Daniel laughed. You're insane. Probably. But I meant what I said. I'm done being afraid. They stood in the driveway, neither quite ready to leave yet. She'll make good on those threats, Daniel said. The custody challenge, complications for your company, all of it. Let her try. I've got lawyers too, good ones, and the city council owes me favors. She's not as powerful as she thinks. And if she is? Ariana stepped closer, hands on his chest. Then we deal with it, together, like we said. Daniel pulled her into a hug, needing the contact, the reassurance that he wasn't alone in this. Thank you, he said into her hair, for coming, for standing up for me, for not running. Thank you for not backing down, for not letting them bully you into giving up. They stood like that for a long moment, drawing strength from each other. Finally, Ariana pulled back. What now? Now I call my lawyer, tell her to prepare for a custody battle. And I go home to Sophie and pretend everything's fine because she doesn't need to know about any of this. And us? Us? Daniel cupped her face. We keep going, if you still want to. I still want to, even knowing it's going to get worse before it gets better. It's definitely going to get worse. Good thing I like a challenge. He kissed her then, there in Eleanor Blake's driveway, where anyone could see. where Miranda was probably watching from a window, where it would definitely be reported and used against them. He didn't care. When they broke apart, Ariana was smiling. "Go get your daughter," she said. "I'll call you later." "Be careful. Eleanor might actually follow through on those threats." "I know. I'll handle it." She squeezed his hand once more. "We've got this." Daniel drove to Peterson's in a fog. His phone rang twice, Miranda both times. He ignored it. She'd said her piece. He had nothing more to say to her. Peterson answered the door looking concerned. "You look like hell." "Feel like it too. Sophie okay?" "Asleep on my couch. Didn't make it through the second movie." He stepped aside. "What happened?" "They threatened custody, tried to intimidate me into breaking up with Ariana. It went about as well as you'd expect." "And?" "And I told them to try it, that I wasn't backing down." Peterson nodded slowly. "Good. About time you grew a spine where that family's concerned. We'll see how good it is when the lawyers get involved." He gathered Sophie carefully. She stirred but didn't wake, just nestled against his shoulder with complete trust. That trust terrified him. What if the Blakes actually succeeded? What if his relationship with Ariana cost him his daughter? But looking at Sophie's peaceful face, he knew he'd made the right choice. He couldn't live in fear anymore. Couldn't let Miranda dictate his life. Couldn't teach his daughter that love meant sacrifice and surrender. Back home, he tucked Sophie into bed, kissed her forehead, and whispered promises he hoped he could keep. Then he sat in his kitchen and called his lawyer. She answered despite the late hour. "Daniel, I was wondering when I'd hear from you. They move faster than we thought. Tell me everything." So he did. The dinner, the threats, Eleanor's intimidation tactics, all of it. Sarah Chen listened without interrupting. "Okay," she said when he finished. "Here's what's going to happen. They'll file for custody modification within the week. We'll respond. It'll probably take months to get a court date. In the meantime, you document everything. Every interaction with Sophie, every school event, every doctor's appointment. Build an airtight case that you're the primary parent and she's thriving in your care. And Ariana? Keep seeing her if you want, but be smart about it. No overnight stays when Sophie's there. No dramatic public displays. Give them as little ammunition as possible. That feels like letting them win. It's called strategic patience. You can have your relationship and protect your custody. Just be careful about how you do it." After they hung up, Daniel sat in the dark and tried to process everything. His phone buzzed. "Ariana. You okay?" Define okay. Still breathing? Not having a panic attack? Barely and almost. Want company? Sophie's here. I meant just to talk. I could come over. We could sit in your car and talk. Or just sit. Whatever you need. Daniel looked at the clock. Nearly midnight. She should be home, safe, away from the fallout of tonight. But he desperately wanted to see her. "Yeah, come over." 20 minutes later, they sat in his car in the parking lot, neither willing to be too far from the apartment in case Sophie woke. "My lawyer called," Ariana said. "Eleanor already contacted the city council about my project, made some noise about impropriety." "Christ, I'm sorry." "Don't be. I made countercalls, reminded certain people that the Blake Foundation's donations have conditions, and that I control those conditions now, not Mother. You really do know how to play the game. I hate the game, but I learned from the best." She took his hand. "They're going to come at us hard, you know. This was just the opening salvo." "I know." Any regrets? About standing up to them? No. About dragging you into this mess? Every minute. Stop. I dragged myself in. This was my choice." She turned to face him. "Daniel, I need you to understand something. I've spent my whole life being careful, doing what was expected, dating men my mother approved of, building a career that made the family proud. And I've been miserable. Then you accidentally liked my profile, and suddenly I remembered what it felt like to want something for myself. I'm not giving that up. Not for Eleanor, not for Miranda, not for anyone. Even if it costs you everything? What's everything worth if I'm not actually living?" Daniel pulled her close, overwhelmed by this woman who'd walked into his life by accident and stayed by choice. They sat in the car until after 1, talking through strategies and fears and everything they were risking. Eventually, Ariana had to leave. Daniel walked her to her car, reluctant to let her go. "Tomorrow?" she asked. "Sophie has a play date after school. I could do dinner?" "Come to my place. I'll cook or order takeout and pretend I cooked." "Sounds perfect." She kissed him goodnight and drove away. Daniel stood in the parking lot watching her taillights disappear, feeling the weight of what they'd started. Inside, he checked on Sophie one more time. She was sprawled across her bed, one arm hanging off the side, completely at peace, unaware that her world might be about to shift again. Daniel made a silent promise to her sleeping form. He'd fight. For her, for his right to be her father, for the life they'd built together. And he'd win. He had to. Because the alternative was unthinkable. The custody papers arrived on Thursday. Daniel signed for them at the door while Sophie ate breakfast, his hand steady even as his stomach dropped. Miranda wasn't bluffing. She'd actually done it. He tucked the envelope into his work bag before Sophie could see it, pasted on a smile he didn't feel, and drove her to school like it was any other morning. "You're being quiet," Sophie observed. "Just tired, Bug." "You're always tired lately. Are you sleeping okay?" "Sometimes. Don't worry about it." "That's what you always say, don't worry about it. But then you look worried all the time, so I worry anyway." Daniel glanced at her in the rear-view mirror. When had she gotten so perceptive? When had the weight of his stress become visible enough for a 6-year-old to carry? "I'm okay," he said, meaning it more than he had in days. "Really? Just some grown-up stuff I'm working through, but it's going to be fine." "Because of Ariana? Because of a lot of things? But yeah, she helps." Sophie nodded, satisfied. "I like her. She doesn't talk to me like I'm stupid." "You're not stupid." "I know, but some adults act like kids can't understand things. Ariana explains stuff for real." That night, Daniel sat at Ariana's kitchen table while she read through the custody filing. Her apartment was everything his wasn't. Spacious, modern, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The kind of place that appeared in design magazines. He should have felt out of place. Instead, it felt oddly comfortable. "This is garbage," Ariana said finally, tossing the papers down. "Their entire argument is that you're not providing adequate financial stability and that your relationship with me demonstrates poor judgment. That's it. That's all they have. Is it enough?" "No, but they're counting on you being too scared to fight back." She looked up. "Your lawyer's seen this?" "Sent it to her this morning. She says it's weak, but we still need to respond properly." "Which means?" "Documentation. Proof that Sophie's thriving. Character witnesses. The whole thing." He rubbed his face. "This is going to cost money I don't have. Legal fees, court costs. Miranda knows that. She's betting I'll give up rather than bankrupt myself." Ariana was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful. "I could help. With the legal fees?" "No." "Daniel, no." "I appreciate it, but no. That's exactly the kind of thing they'll use against us. See? He's financially dependent on his girlfriend, clearly unstable. That's not what it would be. That's how they'd spin it, and they'd be right to. I'm not taking your money. Even if it means losing Sophie?" The question hit like a physical blow. Daniel stood, paced to the window, stared out at the city lights. "I'm not going to lose Sophie," he said. "I can't, so I'll find another way." Ariana came up behind him, wrapped her arms around his waist, pressed her face between his shoulder blades. "Okay, then we find another way." They stood like that for a while, drawing strength from each other. Finally, Ariana pulled back. "I have an idea. For the community center project." Daniel turned. "What about it?" "What if we accelerated it? Got it moving now instead of waiting? It would prove you're not just doing corporate logos, that you're capable of significant work. Shows stability, vision, professional growth. That's not why I want to do the project." "I know, but it doesn't hurt that it also helps your case." She pulled out her laptop, started pulling up files. "I've been working on it anyway. Had my team run preliminary numbers. We could break ground in 6 months if we move fast." Daniel looked at the mock-ups on her screen, his sketches, refined and expanded by professional architects. The community center he'd imagined, made real in renderings and floor plans. "This is really happening," he said quietly. "If you want it to." No pressure, but yes, it's really happening. Something shifted in Daniel's chest. For 2 years, he'd been surviving, going through motions, doing what was necessary to get by. This was different. This was building something, creating instead of just enduring. Yeah, he said. I want it. Ariana smiled. Then let's make it happen. The next 3 weeks were a blur. Daniel worked on the community center designs while managing his regular clients, spent every spare moment documenting his relationship with Sophie, and tried not to think about the court date looming in 8 weeks. Sophie's teacher, Mrs. Martinez, agreed to write a letter testifying to Sophie's well-being and Daniel's involvement. Peterson did the same. Even Emma's mom, who barely knew him, offered to speak about what she'd observed during playdates. "You're a good dad," she said simply. "Anyone can see that." But the stress was taking its toll. Daniel snapped at Sophie over homework one night, immediately felt awful, apologized until she told him to stop because he was being weird again. He lost sleep, lost weight, existed in a constant state of low-level anxiety that made everything feel harder. Ariana was fighting her own battles. Eleanor had made good on her threats, creating bureaucratic nightmares for the waterfront project. Permits delayed, inspections scheduled and rescheduled, meetings canceled last minute, death by 1,000 small obstructions. "She can't keep this up forever," Ariana said one night, frustrated and exhausted. "Eventually she'll run out of favors to call in. Or she'll escalate. There's that optimism I've come to know and love." Despite everything, Daniel smiled. "When did you start loving it?" "Didn't say I loved you, said I loved your optimism." She paused. "Though for the record, the other thing is probably true too." Daniel's heart stopped. "What?" Ariana looked almost embarrassed. "Nothing. Forget it. You can't just say that and then take it back." "I can and I am. Bad timing. Pretend I didn't say anything." But Daniel crossed the room, tilted her face up to his. "Say it again." "Daniel, please." Ariana closed her eyes, took a breath, opened them again. "I love you. I know it's fast and probably stupid and terrible timing given everything that's happening, but I do. I love you." Daniel kissed her, deep and thorough, trying to communicate everything he felt and didn't have words for. "I love you too," he said when they broke apart. "And you're right, it's terrible timing, and I don't care." They spent that night at her place, tangled together in her bed, whispering plans and promises and fears. It felt like a turning point, like whatever happened next, they'd face it together. 4 weeks before the court date, Miranda called. Daniel almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "We need to talk," she said. No preamble, no pleasantries. "I thought we were done talking. That's what lawyers are for. Not about the case, about Ariana." Daniel's grip tightened on the phone. "What about her?" "Meet me for coffee. Tomorrow. Just you and me. No lawyers, no family. Please." The please surprised him. Miranda didn't beg. "Why?" "Because I owe you a conversation. A real one. Will you come?" Against his better judgment, Daniel agreed. They met at a neutral coffee shop, neither momentum nor anywhere connected to their past. Miranda was already there when he arrived, looking tired in a way he'd never seen before. No perfect makeup, no armor of expensive clothes. Just Miranda, worn down and almost human. "Thanks for coming," she said as he sat. "I almost didn't." "I know." She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "I'm withdrawing the custody petition." Daniel stared. "What?" "I'm withdrawing it, telling my lawyer to drop it." "Why?" Miranda looked away, out the window at passing traffic. "Because Ariana came to see me. Yesterday. At my office. We had a conversation that was long overdue." "What kind of conversation?" "The kind where she told me I was being a vindictive bitch and using our daughter as a weapon because I couldn't handle being alone." Miranda's laugh was bitter. She wasn't wrong. Daniel didn't know what to say. "I've been angry," Miranda continued. "At you for leaving, at myself for pushing you away, at Ariana for having what I wanted without even trying. And I took it out on Sophie. On you, on everyone. She finally looked at him. I'm sorry. The apology was so unexpected, Daniel forgot to breathe. You're sorry? Don't make me say it again. I'm terrible at apologizing. She took a sip of coffee. The truth is, you're a better parent than I am. You always have been. Sophie loves you. She's happy with you. And I was willing to destroy that because my ego couldn't handle you moving on before I did. Miranda, let me finish, please. She took a breath. Ariana asked me what I actually wanted, not what Mother wanted. Not what looked good, but what I actually wanted. And I realized I don't want full custody. I don't even want more custody. What I want is to not feel like I failed. Like our marriage ending meant I was broken somehow. You're not broken. Neither are you. But I tried to make you think you were, for years. I'm sorry for that too. They sat in silence for a moment. Daniel processed this version of Miranda he'd never seen. Honest, vulnerable, almost kind. What changed? He asked finally. Ariana. She said something that stuck with me. She said, you can't control everything, and trying to just makes you miserable and everyone around you suffer. Let go or destroy yourself trying to hold on. And she was right. I've been holding on so tight to my idea of how things should be that I couldn't see how they actually were. Which is that you've moved on, that Sophie's happy, that my little sister is brave enough to choose what she wants despite knowing the fallout, that maybe I need to figure out what I actually want instead of what I think I'm supposed to want. Daniel felt something unknot in his chest, relief, gratitude, residual anger that couldn't quite let go yet. So the custody thing is really done? Really done. I'll have my lawyer file the withdrawal tomorrow. And Daniel? She met his eyes. I mean it. I'm sorry for all of it. You deserve better than what I gave you. So did you, he said honestly. We were wrong for each other. But that doesn't mean we were bad people, just bad together. Miranda smiled, sad but genuine. When did you get so wise? Around the time I stopped trying to be what everyone else wanted and started figuring out who I actually was. How's that working out? Still figuring it out, but better than before. They finished their coffee talking about Sophie, about schedules, about co-parenting like adults instead of enemies. It wasn't perfect. Years of hurt didn't disappear in one conversation, but it was a start. When Daniel left, he sat in his car and called Ariana. She answered immediately. How did it go? She dropped the custody petition. Ariana was quiet for a beat. She told you. What did you say to her? The truth, that she was destroying herself and everyone around her, that she needed to choose between being right and being happy. Ariana paused. I might have also threatened to cut her out of my life entirely if she went through with it. Family loyalty only goes so far. You threatened your sister for me. I confronted my sister because what she was doing was wrong. There's a difference. Thank you for standing up for me, for Sophie, for us. That's what you do when you love someone. You show up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Daniel felt emotion clog his throat. I love you. I love you too. Now go home to your daughter and tell her she doesn't have to worry about any of this anymore. That night, Daniel made Sophie's favorite dinner, spaghetti and meatballs, and told her the grown-up stuff was resolved. She didn't need details, just needed to know things were okay. So Mom's not mad anymore? Sophie asked. She's working on not being mad. It'll take time, but things are getting better. And you and Ariana can keep dating? Yeah, Bug, we can keep dating. Good, because I like her. And you smile more when she's around. I do? Way more. Like a weird amount more. It's kind of embarrassing, actually. Daniel laughed and pulled her into a hug. I'll try to be less embarrassing. That's all I ask. The community center project broke ground 3 months later. Daniel stood at the site with Ariana, Sophie, and a small crowd of city officials and local residents. The mayor gave a speech about community investment and architectural innovation. Ariana talked about sustainable design and public space. When it was Daniel's turn to speak, he looked out at the faces watching him and felt a surge of something he couldn't quite name. Pride, maybe. Or purpose. 2 years ago, he said, I thought I knew what my life was supposed to look like. I had a plan, a path. And then everything fell apart. The marriage ended. The plan disappeared. And I was left trying to figure out who I was when everything I'd built my identity around was gone. He glanced at Sophie, who was listening intently. My daughter taught me something important. She asked me once why I couldn't just be brave and go after what I wanted, the way I always told her to do. And I realized I'd stopped being brave. I'd stopped trying. I was just surviving. He looked at Ariana, who smiled. This center represents a lot of things: community space, public resources, architectural innovation. But for me, it represents the choice to stop surviving and start living. To build instead of just endure. To create something meaningful even when it's scary and uncertain. The speech went on, but later Daniel couldn't remember most of it. What he remembered was Sophie's hand in his, squeezing tight. Ariana's eyes bright with unshed tears. The feeling of standing on ground where something new was beginning. That evening, they went to dinner together, Daniel, Sophie, and Ariana. A restaurant Sophie picked because it had good pasta and didn't care if kids were loud. They ate and talked and laughed, and somewhere between the appetizers and dessert, Daniel realized this was his life now. Not the one he'd planned. Something different. Something better. "Can I ask you guys something?" Sophie said, chocolate cake smeared on her chin. "Sure, Bug." "Are you going to get married?" Daniel choked on his water. Ariana went very still. That's a pretty big question," Daniel managed. "But are you?" "Because Emma's mom's boyfriend moved in, and now they're getting married, and Emma has to wear a dress she hates for the wedding." "I promise if we ever get married, you get veto power on the dress," Ariana said. "So you are getting married." "I didn't say that. I said if." "But you're thinking about it." "Sophie," Daniel intervened, "that's a grown-up decision that's way in the future. Don't rush us." "I'm not rushing. I'm asking. There's a difference." Sophie turned to Ariana. "Do you want to marry Dad?" Ariana looked at Daniel, something complicated in her expression. "Someday," she said carefully. "Maybe. If he asks, and if we both think it's the right choice." "Would you say yes?" "Sophie," Daniel started. "I'd have to think about it," Ariana said, smiling. "It's a big decision, but probably yes." Sophie grinned. "Good. Because I already told Emma you were basically my stepmom, and it would be embarrassing if I was wrong." "You told Emma what?" "That you were basically family. Because you are. You come to my school stuff and you play cards with me and you know about space. That's family." Daniel's throat tightened. Out of the mouths of 6-year-olds came truth he wasn't ready to handle. "Yeah," he said quietly, "that's family." 6 months after the community center groundbreaking, on a Saturday afternoon when the weather was perfect and Sophie was at Emma's house, Daniel took Ariana back to the construction site. The building was taking shape now. Walls up, roof framed, windows going in. You could see what it would become. "Remember when this was just sketches?" Ariana said, looking up at the structure. "I remember thinking it would never be real. That people like me don't get to build things like this. And now? Now I'm standing here looking at something I created, something that's going to matter, that's going to be here long after I'm gone." He turned to her. "You did this. You made this possible. You designed it. I just provided resources. You provided belief. That's more valuable than resources." Ariana smiled, leaned into him. They stood watching construction workers move around the site, the sounds of buildings surrounding them. "I have something to ask you," Daniel said. "If it's about the HVAC system, I already approved the upgrade. It's not about the HVAC system." Something in his tone made her look up. He was already pulling a small box from his pocket. "Daniel, wait. Let me say this before I lose my nerve." He took a breath. 6 months ago, I accidentally liked your profile. Best mistake I ever made. You walked into my life and changed everything. Made me remember what it felt like to want something, to build something, to be brave enough to risk being happy. Daniel, you don't have to. I want to. I've wanted to for months, but the timing never felt right. And then I realized there's no perfect time. There's just now. And right now, standing here at this place we built together, I want to ask if you'll marry me." He opened the box. Simple ring, single stone, nothing ostentatious. Exactly right. Ariana stared at it, eyes wide. "I know it's fast," Daniel continued. "I know we've only known each other 6 months. I know there are 1,000 reasons to wait. But I also know I love you. I know Sophie loves you. I know I want to build a life with you that's as real and solid as this building. So will you marry me?" Ariana's eyes filled with tears. "You're sure?" "Because you know what this means. My family will have opinions. Your ex-wife will have opinions. Everyone will have something to say. Let them say it. I don't care anymore. You'll care when my mother tries to take over the wedding planning. I'll care about you, that's all." Ariana laughed through tears. "That's such a line. It's the truth." "It's still a line." She looked at the ring, then at him. "Yes." "Yes?" "Yes, I'll marry you. Despite your terrible coffee and your tendency to worry about everything and the fact that this is definitely too fast and probably crazy." Daniel slipped the ring on her finger, pulled her into a kiss that tasted like salt and joy and future. "We should tell Sophie first," Ariana said when they broke apart. "Before anyone else, she deserves to know." Agreed, though she's probably going to say she already knew. She absolutely is. Your daughter is terrifyingly perceptive. They told Sophie that evening. She looked at the ring, looked at them, and said exactly what they'd predicted. "Finally, I thought you'd never ask. Emma and I have been waiting forever." "You've been waiting?" Daniel asked. "Emma and I made a bet. She said you'd ask within a year. I said 6 months. I won." Sophie grinned. "Can I be in the wedding?" "Of course you can be in the wedding," Ariana said. "And I get to pick my dress?" "Within reason." "What's reason?" "Nothing that glows in the dark or has more than 3 layers of tulle." Sophie considered this. "That's fair. Can I help plan stuff?" "Absolutely. Your family. You get a vote on everything." Sophie hugged them both, fierce and happy. This is going to be awesome. They told Peterson next, then Daniel's parents, then Ariana's father, who was thrilled and promised to run interference with Eleanor. Miranda found out through Sophie and sent a text that just said, "Congratulations, she's better than I was. Don't screw it up." Eleanor Blake did exactly what they expected. Objected, complained, threatened to boycott the wedding. Ariana told her she was welcome to skip it if she wanted. They'd understand. The threat of being excluded shut Eleanor up faster than any argument would have. The wedding was small. Immediate family, close friends, held in the partially completed community center because Ariana insisted and Daniel loved her for it. Sophie was flower girl and took her duties extremely seriously. Peterson walked Daniel down the aisle because Daniel's father was too emotional to do it. Miranda came, sat in the back, and left immediately after without causing a scene. Eleanor came, looked disapproving, but kept her opinions to herself. Ariana's father gave a toast that made everyone cry. When they exchanged vows, Daniel looked at this woman who'd stumbled into his life through a careless tap of his thumb and felt overwhelming gratitude for mistakes that led to right places. "I promise to be brave with you," he said, "to build instead of just survive, to choose us even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." "I promise to keep you honest," Ariana said, "to challenge you, to stand beside you when things fall apart, to love you and Sophie with everything I have." They kissed as husband and wife while Sophie cheered and the small crowd applauded, and somewhere in the chaos, Daniel caught Miranda's eye. She nodded once, small but genuine, then slipped out. Later that night, after the reception, and after Sophie was asleep at Peterson's house for the evening, Daniel and Ariana sat on their apartment balcony, the apartment they now shared, the one they'd moved into together a month ago, and watched the city lights. "How are you feeling?" Ariana asked. Married, happy, slightly terrified. He looked at her. "You?" "Same, all of it." She leaned against him. "Think we can actually do this? Marriage, building a life together, raising a kid who's already smarter than both of us? All of it. Honestly, I have no idea, but I want to try." "That's very romantic." "I'm not a romantic person. You literally proposed at a construction site. That's practical. We were already there." Ariana laughed. The sound brightened the darkness. I love you. Even when you're being deliberately obtuse. I love you too. Even when you reorganize my coffee mugs by size. They should be organized by size. It's logical. It's controlling. It's efficient. They argued about it good-naturedly while the city hummed below them and their future stretched out ahead, uncertain and perfect in its imperfection. A year later, the community center opened officially. It was everything Daniel had envisioned and more. Library spaces filled with kids and books, meeting rooms hosting local groups, a small theater where the community theater group performed, gardens maintained by volunteers, spaces that flowed and invited and belonged to everyone. Sophie was 8 now, still obsessed with space, but also getting into robotics. She'd started calling Ariana Mom sometime around month 3 of the marriage, casually, like it had always been that way. Ariana had cried for an hour. Miranda had started dating someone, a kind man who owned a bookstore and didn't care about her last name. She and Daniel had settled into actual co-parenting, civilized and sometimes even friendly. Sophie split her time between houses and seemed happy in both. Eleanor Blake still didn't approve, but had stopped actively interfering. Ariana had made it clear that access to her granddaughter was contingent on good behavior. Even Eleanor had limits to her stubbornness. The night of the center's opening, after all the speeches and photos and congratulations, Daniel stood in the empty lobby with Ariana and Sophie. "We did it," he said quietly. "You did it," Ariana corrected. "This was your vision. Our vision. I couldn't have done it without you." "Does this mean you're going to do more architecture?" Sophie asked. "Because I think you should. You're good at it. Maybe, if the right project comes along. You should design a planetarium next." "That's very specific." "I want a planetarium, and you're an architect now, so you should design one." Daniel looked at Ariana, who was trying not to laugh. "I'll consider it," he said. They walked through the center together, turning off lights, locking doors. Outside, the night was clear, stars visible despite the city lights. "There's Orion," Sophie said, pointing. "See? The 3 stars in a line are his belt." "I see it," Ariana said. "And that bright one is Betelgeuse. It's a red supergiant. Someday it's going to explode and become a supernova." "When?" Daniel asked. "Could be tomorrow. Could be 1,000,000 years from now. No one knows exactly." They stood looking up at stars that might already be dead, their light still reaching across impossible distances. Daniel thought about mistakes and accidents, about plans that fell apart, and lives that came together in unexpected ways. He'd come so far from that morning when a careless tap changed everything, from the man who'd been just surviving to someone who built and created and dared to be happy. It hadn't been smooth, hadn't been easy. There'd been fights and setbacks and moments when everything seemed impossible. But standing here with his wife and daughter, looking at something he'd created that would outlast him, Daniel understood something fundamental. Life didn't fall apart when you made mistakes. Sometimes it fell apart so it could fall into place. Sometimes the wrong thing led to the right place. Sometimes an accident was exactly what you needed, even when you didn't know you needed it. "Ready to go home?" Ariana asked. "Yeah," Daniel said, taking her hand, reaching for Sophie with the other. "Let's go home." They walked to the car together, a family built from accidents and choices and courage. The community center stood behind them, solid and real. Ahead, their apartment waited, messy and lived in and perfect in its imperfection. Daniel had learned something in the years since that accidental like. You couldn't plan everything, couldn't control outcomes, couldn't guarantee happy endings. All you could do was show up, be brave, choose love even when it was risky, build something worth building, even if you weren't sure it would stand. Sometimes that was enough. Sometimes that was everything. And as Sophie explained the life cycle of stars from the back seat, and Ariana's hand was warm in his, and the city lights blurred past the windows, Daniel knew with absolute certainty that this messy, imperfect, accidentally perfect life was more than enough. It was everything he'd never known he wanted, and he wouldn't change a single mistake that had led him here.